Echoes of Eternity, written by Miriam K. Musonda-salati, originally published in 2021, audiobook edition released in 2025, all rights reserved, copyright 2021-2025 by Miriam K. Musonda-salati. This audiobook is protected under international copyright law. No part of this recording may be reproduced, distributed, or transmitted in any form or by any means, including copying, recording, or electronic sharing, without the prior written permission of the author. Unauthorized use is strictly prohibited. All rights reserved. Acknowledgements. To everyone who believed in this story before it ever reached the world, thank you. Your encouragement, your love, and your presence help bring these chapters to life. To every reader and listener who holds these words close, you are part of this journey now, and I am grateful for you. Dedication. This audiobook is lovingly dedicated to every heart that has ever waited, wondered, hoped, or loved deeply. To the soul that believes in destiny. To the spirit that refuses to give up on what God has written. This is for you. This is Echoes of Eternity, a story shaped by longing, destiny, and the quiet spaces where love refuses to fade. Here time bends softly, memories breathe with warmth, and two souls discover that what is meant for them will always find its way back home. This is a tale for the heart that listens, for the spirit that feels deeply, for the one who knows that true love does not vanish. It echoes. Settle your thoughts. Open your spirit. Let the journey unfold. Chapter 1: Melodies of Youth. The air was crisp with the scent of autumn leaves as Hayden strolled through the ivy-covered arches of Green Hill University. The campus, dressed in a kaleidoscope of reds, ambers, and golds, was alive in ways that stirred both memory and imagination. Sunlight filtered through the branches of tall oaks, scattering golden flecks onto the stone walkways like nature's own confetti. Every breeze carried a whisper of nostalgia, as though the university itself remembered every soul that had ever walked its paths. It was the evening of the annual Fall Festival, the crown jewel of Green Hill traditions. For one night, the university's academic rigor softened into celebration. Professors set aside their lectures, students traded textbooks for lanterns, and music echoed through every corner of the campus. The heart of the festival lay in the main square, where strings of fairy lights twinkled like distant stars and stalls brimmed with everything from candied apples to handmade crafts. A small stage had been erected at the center, and from it poured the kind of music that seemed to bypass the ears and sink straight into the heart. A violin sang a haunting melody, soon joined by the rhythmic thrum of a guitar, and the result was a harmony that hovered somewhere between joy and longing. For Hayden, this night was more than tradition. It was an inspiration. As an art major, he saw life not in moments but in brushstrokes, in shades of shadow and light. He walked with a sketchbook tucked under his arm, always ready to capture the fleeting curve of a smile, the angle of a building against the sky, or the way the setting sun painted the clouds in strokes no human hand could ever replicate. The festival was, for him, an endless gallery of living canvases. Every lantern, every costume, every laughing face was another splash of color in a scene waiting to be immortalized. And yet, for all his eye for beauty, Hayden often felt like an outsider, peering in through the glass of his own quiet existence. He had friends, of course, classmates who admired his talent, professors who praised his work, but he rarely let anyone close enough to glimpse the parts of himself he poured onto his canvases. Art was his safe language, and sometimes the only one he trusted. Tonight felt different, though. Tonight, there was an electric hum in the air, a promise written into the wind that something extraordinary was waiting. And then he saw her. She stood at the edge of the fountain, her figure framed by the fading warmth of the setting sun. The golden light kissed her dark brown hair, catching strands that shimmered like burnished copper. Her eyes, deep and luminous, reflected the autumn leaves above her, as if nature itself had chosen her as its mirror. She laughed at something a friend had said, and the sound carried across the square like a melody more enchanting than the music on stage. Hayden froze. It was not the kind of pause that came from simple attraction. It was as though the universe had held its breath. Around him, the chatter of the crowd dimmed, the violin softened, and the world seemed to narrow into a single undeniable truth. This moment had been waiting for him. Marissa. He didn't know her name yet, but somehow deep within it already belonged to him. Or perhaps he belonged to it. His pulse quickened. His palms grew damp against the leather cover of his sketchbook. He could almost feel the outlines of her being sketching themselves onto his heart, unbidden. She wasn't doing anything extraordinary, just smiling, tilting her head as she listened. But Hayden felt as though he were witnessing the unveiling of a masterpiece. For the first time in his life, beauty wasn't something he needed to capture. It was something that captured him. He stood still for several seconds, debating. Should he approach her? What if she dismissed him? What if she turned away? The thought clawed at him, but so did another. What if he didn't? What if he let this moment slip, and for the rest of his life wondered what might have happened if he had just walked forward? Hayden drew in a breath, steadying his courage. His legs felt heavier than stone, but some invisible thread tugged him closer. Each step carried him not just across the square but across a threshold he hadn't even realized he was ready to cross. When he finally reached her side, the music seemed to hush. The laughter of the festival melted into background noise. All that remained was the sound of his heart pounding like a drum inside his chest. "Hi," he said, his voice nearly lost in the hum of the crowd. "I'm Hayden." She turned, and in that instant the world shifted. Her eyes met his, warm, curious, unguarded. A spark, faint yet undeniable, leapt between them. Her lips curved into a smile that didn't just reach her mouth but lit her entire face. "I'm Marissa," she replied. Her voice was soft, lilting like the brush of silk across skin. "Nice to meet you, Hayden." And just like that, the hollow space inside him, the one he had tried to fill with colors and canvases, stirred with life. Hayden's introduction hung in the air like a delicate note, waiting to be answered. Marissa's eyes lingered on him, studying his face for a beat longer than polite conversation required. Something about the earnestness in his expression made her soften instantly. She had met plenty of people at Greenhill, but this moment felt different, as though she were standing at the threshold of something she couldn't yet name. "It's beautiful tonight, isn't it?" she said, her gaze flicking toward the canopy of light strung across the square. "The festival always makes the campus feel magical." Hayden followed her glance. The fairy lights shimmered like stars caught between branches, and he thought of how inadequate words were to describe the way they framed her profile. "Still," he nodded, forcing himself to find his voice. "Yeah," he said, "but I think it's more magical right now." She tilted her head, a playful spark lighting her eyes. "Because of the music?" "Because of you," he replied, the words slipping out before he could stop them. Marissa laughed, the sound like wind chimes stirred by a gentle breeze. She wasn't the type to be easily swayed by flattery, but there was something in Hayden's tone that carried sincerity. It wasn't a rehearsed line. It was raw truth, simple and unpolished. For a moment they stood in silence, the world around them bustling and alive, but their small circle wrapped in a quiet intimacy. Hayden felt the itch of nerves in his chest, but he also sensed an opening, like the beginning strokes of a canvas he was desperate to fill. "Do you come to the festival every year?" he asked. "Yeah," Marissa said, nodding. "It's one of my favorite traditions. Music, art, food, all the little pieces of joy in one place. It reminds me to slow down and actually breathe." Her answer disarmed him. Most people would have shrugged, called it fun, or used the festival as a backdrop for selfies. But Marissa spoke with thought, with a kind of awareness that mirrored his own. He smiled. "That's exactly why I love it too. Life feels louder here, but not in the overwhelming way. More like the world is trying to show us something if we pay attention." Their eyes locked again, and for a flicker of a second, Hayden wondered if she felt it too, the sense that they were not simply meeting, but colliding with destiny. The music shifted on the stage, the band trading haunting violin for an upbeat folk song. Students clapped in rhythm, pulling one another into circles of spontaneous dancing. Marissa's friend excused herself to join the crowd, leaving Hayden and Marissa standing alone by the fountain. Marissa tucked her hair behind her ear, a small gesture that somehow made Hayden's chest tighten. "So Hayden," she said, her tone curious, "what do you study?" "Art," he answered quickly. Then, almost apologetically, he added, "I paint. And I sketch. It's kind of everything to me." Her eyes brightened with genuine interest. "That's incredible. Art fascinates me. I'm in psychology, but I think there's something deeply connected between the two." People create art because of what they feel, what they go through. It's like the mind made visible. Hayden blinked, stunned for a moment. He wasn't used to people understanding so quickly, so effortlessly. Most just saw his work as pretty pictures. But Marissa? She saw the soul in it. "That's exactly how I see it," he said, his voice more urgent than he meant it to be. "Art is the part of us we can't explain any other way. It's everything left unsaid." A smile curved across Marissa's lips, soft but knowing. "Then maybe your paintings say more about you than you ever could." The word struck him like lightning. Not in a painful way, but in the way a truth you've always known feels when someone else finally names it. He wanted to laugh, to say something clever, but all he could do was look at her and marvel at how easily she seemed to understand him. The crowd around them grew louder, the dancing circle widening. A group of students pulled bystanders into the rhythm, and before Hayden could react, Marissa's hand brushed his. "Come on," she said with a grin. "Dance with me." Hayden's heart jolted. He was no dancer. His world was paint and canvas, not music and movement, but the warmth of her hand, even for a fleeting second, silenced all hesitation. They joined the circle, laughter spilling between strangers as the music swelled. Hayden stumbled at first, his movements awkward, but Marissa steadied him with her presence, her laughter coaxing him into the rhythm. Soon they were spinning beneath the fairy lights, their laughter tangled with the melody, their eyes never straying far from one another. For Hayden, the world had never felt so alive. Each step was a brushstroke, each laugh a note in a symphony he hadn't known he was missing. When the song finally ended, they found themselves breathless, standing closer than they had before. Marissa's cheeks glowed with warmth, and Hayden's chest rose and fell with the exhilaration of both the dance and the nearness of her. "Not bad for an artist," she teased. "Not bad for someone who doesn't know how to breathe when you're this close," he wanted to say. But instead he just smiled, his silence saying everything. The music from the festival softened into the background as Hayden and Marissa drifted away from the dancing circle. Their breath still came quick with laughter, cheeks glowing from the rush of movement. The fountain glistened nearby, its waters catching the twinkle of fairy lights like scattered stars, and instinctively they wandered toward it, drawn by the quiet it promised away from the crowd. They found a bench tucked beneath an oak tree. Marissa sat first, her hand brushing fallen leaves from the wooden slats. Hayden lowered himself beside her, suddenly hyper-aware of the closeness. Every detail seemed amplified, the brush of her sleeve against his, the warmth radiating from her, the faint scent of lavender and autumn air that clung to her hair. For a moment neither spoke. The festival sounds carried on in the distance. Students laughing, music swelling, vendors calling out about caramel apples and roasted chestnuts. But here, in the dim glow of lantern light, it felt as though the world had paused. Marissa broke the silence. "So Hayden, why art?" Her tone was soft but curious, as though she truly wanted to understand. He smiled faintly, looking down at his hands. "Because it's the only way I know how to make sense of things. The world moves too fast sometimes. People forget things, moments, feelings, but if I can capture it on canvas, even a little piece, then it doesn't get lost. It's like proof that the beauty was real." Her eyes softened. "That's beautiful. And honest. Most people I ask would give me some practical answer like because I'm good at it, or because it'll pay the bills someday. But you," she shook her head with a quiet smile, "you talk about art the way some people talk about love." Hayden's throat tightened. He wanted to tell her that maybe it was the same thing, that art and love both demanded vulnerability, both terrified and exhilarated him in equal measure. But instead he said, "And you? Why psychology?" Marissa leaned back slightly, her gaze lifting toward the canopy of branches above them. Lantern light danced across her features. "Because people fascinate me. The way we think, feel, dream, hurt, heal. I want to understand it, not just for myself but for others too. Sometimes I feel like the mind is this endless puzzle. Maybe if I can learn enough, I can help someone put the pieces back together." He studied her quietly, admiration blooming inside him. She wasn't just beautiful. She had depth, conviction. She wanted to heal. That kind of strength humbled him. Their conversation flowed from there like water from the fountain. Smooth, unbroken, natural. They spoke about favorite books, childhood dreams, their quirks and fears. Hayden admitted he sometimes stayed awake until dawn painting, chasing an idea until it consumed him. Marissa confessed she collected journals, dozens of them, filled with half-written stories, sketches, and fragments of thoughts she could never quite let go of. "Sounds like you're an artist too," Hayden teased gently. "Maybe," she said with a laugh, "but words are my paintbrush. I've always thought if I didn't study psychology, I'd probably write novels." "Then maybe you should," he said earnestly. "The world could use your voice." Her cheeks flushed at the sincerity in his tone. She looked at him for a long moment, as though weighing whether to believe him. The night deepened, stars scattering across the sky above. Around them, the festival began to quiet as booths closed and music faded. Yet neither Hayden nor Marissa moved to leave. Time seemed reluctant to intrude on their newfound connection. Eventually, Marissa glanced at the fountain, the rippling water reflecting her thoughtful expression. "Do you ever feel like some moments aren't accidents?" Hayden turned to her, surprised. "What do you mean?" "Like maybe the universe nudges us," she continued. "Puts us in the right place at the right time with the right people. Almost as if—" She hesitated, searching for the right words. "As if some meetings are written before they ever happen." Hayden's heart stuttered. It was as though she had plucked the thought straight from his own chest. "I do," he said quietly, "and right now feels like one of those moments." Marissa's gaze met his, and the air between them tightened with unspoken truth. Neither moved closer, but the space seemed charged, brimming with possibility. The night itself seemed to hold its breath. Finally, Marissa smiled softly, breaking the spell just enough. "I should probably get back. My roommate will wonder where I disappeared to." Hayden's chest ached at the thought of their time ending. But he nodded, rising to his feet. "Can I walk you back?" She hesitated, not out of reluctance, but as though savoring the weight of the offer. Then she nodded. "I'd like that." They walked together through the dimly lit campus, their steps slow, reluctant to reach the dorms too quickly. Conversation lingered between them, light but meaningful. Hayden found himself memorizing everything: the way her laugh rose softly in the night air, the way her hand brushed against her coat pocket, the way she seemed to illuminate even the shadows around her. When they reached her dorm, they paused at the steps. Neither wanted to break the fragile thread woven between them tonight. "Thank you," Marissa said softly. "For what?" "For this." She gestured vaguely to the night, the festival, the space between them. "For making the evening feel like more than just another festival." Hayden smiled, warmth flooding his chest. "Then thank you too, for letting me be part of it." They stood there a moment longer, eyes locked, silence settling into something intimate and unspoken. And though neither reached for the other, the promise hung in the air. This wasn't an ending. This was a beginning. Marissa finally stepped back, her hand resting briefly on the railing. "Good night, Hayden." "Good night, Marissa." As she disappeared inside, Hayden lingered on the steps, his heart pounding with a mix of awe and disbelief. The hollow space inside him no longer felt quite so empty. Something had begun tonight. Something fragile, something profound. He turned to leave, the crisp night air brushing against him like a benediction. The echoes of music still floated faintly across campus, but it was her laughter, her smile, her voice that replayed in his mind like the most unforgettable song. And deep down, Hayden knew this was only the first note in a symphony that had just begun. Chapter 2: Fading Autumn Leaves. The days that followed the festival carried the lingering sweetness of a melody that refused to fade. For Hayden, the memory of Marissa's laughter played on a loop in his mind, echoing louder than any music he had ever heard. He found himself sketching her face in the margins of his notebooks, painting her silhouette into the corners of canvases, as though she had already become part of his creative language. Marissa, too, felt the shift. The memory of their meeting returned in quiet moments, while she walked across campus beneath rustling trees, while she studied late in the library, while she tried to sleep and found her heart strangely restless. She told herself it was just a coincidence, just the thrill of a new connection. But in her chest, something whispered otherwise. The autumn leaves, once vibrant in their fiery hues, had begun to fade. Each day, more golden fragments carpeted the ground, crunching softly beneath the steps of students hurrying to class. The season was shifting, and with it, so were Hayden and Marissa, towards something they could not yet name. It was on a crisp afternoon that Hayden spotted her again in the library. The grand building smelled of parchment and polished wood, sunlight slanting in through tall windows to bathe the rows of shelves in soft gold. Marissa sat tucked in a corner, surrounded by open books, her brow furrowed in concentration. Hayden lingered at the entrance for a moment, nerves fluttering in his chest. He almost turned away, afraid of interrupting, afraid of looking foolish, but the pull was too strong. He moved toward her, his steps quiet on the carpet. When she finally looked up, surprise flickered in her eyes, quickly followed by warmth. "Hey," she said, her voice hushed for the library's silence but carrying the same brightness that had captivated him before. "Hey," he replied, a shy smile tugging at his lips. "I was hoping I'd run into you." Marissa's lips curved as she closed her book. "And here I thought the library was safe from chance encounters." Hayden chuckled softly, then braced himself. "Actually, I was wondering, would you like to grab a coffee? There's this little cafe off campus. Best pumpkin spice lattes you'll ever have. At least, that's what I keep telling myself." Her eyes lit with amusement, and something else, something softer. "Coffee sounds perfect." They left the library together, stepping into the brisk afternoon. The wind teased at Marissa's dark brown hair, sending loose strands dancing across her face. Hayden's fingers twitched with the impulse to tuck them back, but he kept his hands shoved in his pockets, his heart racing at even the thought. The cafe was nestled on a side street, its windows glowing with the promise of warmth. Inside, the scent of roasted beans and cinnamon wrapped around them like a blanket. Wooden tables were scattered with students, professors, and locals, all tucked into their own quiet corners of comfort. They chose a table by the window, the golden light spilling across Marissa's face as she wrapped her hands around the warm cup. Hayden sat opposite, stealing glances at her when he thought she wasn't looking, though she noticed, and each time, her smile grew a little wider. Their conversation stretched far beyond coffee. They spoke of family, of dreams, of fears they had never voiced aloud to anyone else. Hayden told her about the first time he held a paintbrush, how the blank canvas both terrified and exhilarated him. Marissa shared how she had once thought of becoming a writer, until psychology had captured her heart with its mysteries. "You'd be a great writer," Hayden said. "You already speak like one. Everything you say feels like it should be written down somewhere." Her cheeks flushed, and she lowered her eyes to her latte. "You make it sound poetic." "I just try to be honest." "Honest is poetry," he said simply. For a moment, silence hung between them. Not awkward but full, like a page waiting for the next line. Hayden leaned forward slightly, his voice softer. "Marissa, I was wondering, would you like to go out with me sometime? Officially, I mean." Her eyes lifted to his surprise, flashing there, followed quickly by a smile that melted every ounce of doubt in him. "I'd like that, Hayden," she said. "I'd like that very much." Their first official date was set for the following weekend, but neither Hayden nor Marissa seemed capable of waiting. Over the next few days, they found excuses to see one another. Quick walks between classes, stolen conversations outside lecture halls, brief lunches under the shade of trees shedding their last golden leaves. When Saturday finally arrived, Hayden led Marissa to the university's art gallery. It wasn't the grandest of spaces, but for him it was sacred. The walls held stories told in oil, charcoal, watercolor, each piece a voice speaking to whoever paused long enough to listen. Marissa's eyes widened as they entered. "This is beautiful," she whispered, her voice reverent as if afraid to disturb the silence. Hayden smiled. "It's one of my favorite places. I thought, maybe I could share it with you." They moved slowly through the gallery, stopping at each painting. Hayden explained little. He preferred to hear what Marissa saw first. "This one feels lonely," she said, pausing before a canvas of a single figure against a stormy background, "but not hopeless, like they're waiting for something or someone to arrive." Hayden glanced at her, startled by her insight. That was exactly what he had felt when he painted it. "You have an eye for this," he murmured. She shook her head. "No, I just feel things." He wanted to tell her that was all art demanded, feeling. But he let the moment linger, watching how her presence seemed to breathe new life into the paintings around them. At one point, they stopped before a large abstract piece. Swirls of blue and crimson collided in violent strokes. Hayden had spent weeks agonizing over it, never sure if it was brilliance or failure. Marissa tilted her head, studying it with quiet focus. This looks like conflict, but also passion, like two forces colliding and neither willing to give way. Hayden laughed softly, shaking his head. You're dangerous, you know that? Her brow furrowed in confusion. Dangerous. You see right through things. Through me. His voice dipped, carrying more weight than he intended. Their eyes held, the air between them charged, until Marissa finally looked away, her cheeks warming. They left the gallery as dusk settled over the campus. The last light of the sun painted the sky in streaks of violet and rose, the air crisp enough to draw them closer together as they walked. Hayden glanced sideways at her, summoning courage. I'm really glad we did this. Marissa smiled, her breath fogging lightly in the air. Me too, Hayden. You make the world feel different, like I'm seeing it through new colors. His heart stuttered. To him, that was the highest compliment anyone could give. As they neared her dorm, the crunch of leaves underfoot marking each step, Hayden's mind whirled. He wanted to hold her hand, to keep this moment from slipping too quickly into memory. But he hesitated, afraid of moving too fast, afraid of breaking whatever fragile magic was unfolding between them. When they finally stopped at her door, Marissa turned to him, eyes warm. Thank you for today, for showing me your world. Thank you, he replied softly, for stepping into it. There was a pause, a heartbeat stretched into eternity. Then, with a courage that surprised even herself, Marissa leaned up on her toes and pressed a brief kiss to his cheek. Hayden froze, the warmth of her lips burning into his skin. Before he could react, she was already retreating with a shy smile, slipping inside the building with a soft, "Good night, Hayden." He stood there long after the door closed, his hand lifting to touch the place where her kiss still lingered. For Hayden, the night had rewritten everything. Sunday morning dawned crisp and pale, sunlight dripping through the branches outside Hayden's window like liquid gold. He had slept little, his mind replaying the kiss on his cheek, the way Marissa's laughter seemed to echo in the stillness. His sketchbook lay open on the desk, pages filled with her features sketched again and again, the curve of her smile, the tilt of her head, the depth of her eyes. By the time the week rolled on, their connection had deepened into a rhythm that felt both new and inevitable. They sat together at lunch, walked across campus with coffees warming their hands, studied in quiet corners of the library where the silence was interrupted only by whispered jokes and smiles they couldn't suppress. It wasn't dramatic, not yet. No grand declarations, no sweeping gestures. But it was steady like the unfolding of a sonata, each note building on the last. One afternoon, as leaves drifted lazily from the trees, Hayden found himself walking Marissa home again. The air was thick with the scent of earth and wood smoke, autumn clinging stubbornly to its last breath before winter claimed the land. Marissa tightened her scarf around her neck. Do you ever wonder where we'll all end up? I mean, after graduation? Hayden glanced at her, surprised. Sometimes. I guess I try not to think too far ahead. Life feels easier when I just focus on what's in front of me. What about you? She hesitated, then gave a small shrug. I wonder about it all the time. My parents have plans for me, law school, a respectable career, all of that. But my heart, it doesn't always fit into their mold. I don't know if I want the life they picture for me. There was a vulnerability in her words that made Hayden's chest ache. He slowed his steps, searching her face. So what do you want, Marissa? If you could choose for yourself. There was a vulnerability in her words that made Hayden's chest ache. He slowed his steps, searching her face. So what do you want, Marissa? If you could choose for yourself. She was quiet for a long moment, leaves crunching beneath their feet. Then she said softly, I want freedom. To find beauty. To do work that matters not just to the world but to me. And maybe someone to share it with. Hayden's breath caught. He wanted to tell her he could be that someone. That he wanted to stand in her corner. To see the world through her eyes. To make every dream she whispered into something real. But the words stuck in his throat, too heavy with possibility. Instead, he said, then don't let anyone else write your story for you. You're the only one who can. Marissa looked at him, her eyes shimmering with something that felt like recognition, like he had spoken the very thing her soul had been waiting to hear. That evening, they stopped at the fountain again, the same one where they had first met. Students bustled around them, but the two of them seemed to stand outside of time. Hayden pulled a coin from his pocket and pressed it into her palm. "Make a wish," he said. She laughed, startled. "What if I don't believe in wishes?" "Then just hope out loud." She studied him for a moment, then closed her eyes and let the coin slip into the water. It landed with a quiet splash, ripples spreading outward until the reflection of lantern light fractured into 1,000 trembling stars. "What did you wish for?" Hayden asked. Marissa opened her eyes, a teasing smile tugging at her lips. "If I tell you, it won't come true." He grinned, though curiosity tugged at him. "Fair enough." Silence stretched between them, but it wasn't empty. It was full of what-ifs, of maybes, of 1,000 unsaid words. Finally, Marissa turned toward him, her voice soft. "Thank you, Hayden, for reminding me that sometimes life can be more than books and deadlines and expectations. Sometimes it can just be beautiful." His chest tightened. He wanted to reach for her hand, to close the small space between them, but he held back because he knew in his bones that there would be a right moment, and when it came it would mean everything. As they parted ways that night, the last of the autumn leaves skittered across the pavement, carried by the wind like scattered confetti. Hayden watched her go, the scarf around her neck trailing slightly as she disappeared into the dormitory light. He stood there a long time, his heart restless, his soul already painting her into the fabric of his life. And as the season slipped closer to winter, he realized something undeniable. Marissa wasn't just another fleeting figure in his story. She was becoming the story itself. Chapter 3. Canvases and Conversations. Summer didn't arrive at Greenhill all at once. It unfurled like a shy ribbon, threading itself through warm afternoons, longer evenings, and the gentle thrum of possibility that lives between semesters. By the time classes dwindled and the campus emptied of deadlines, Hayden and Marissa had fallen into a rhythm that felt as natural as breathing. Not a rush, not a blaze, something steadier, like a candle that refused to flicker even when the window was open. They were never far from one another's days. A text sent between lectures, "You'd love the light in the studio right now, it's the color of apricots." A voice note after midnight, "I found an article on memory consolidation. It sounds like the way your colors layer when they dry." They began keeping time in a different way. Not by the hands of the clock, but by the moments they shared. Coffee before the library. A walk that detoured 3 times because the sky wouldn't stop showing off. A quiet bench facing the lake, where dragonflies scribbled cursive on the surface, and their future felt like a sentence still being written. Hayden learned the shape of her laugh, the bright one, startled and quick, the softer one, reserved for small astonishments, like the way a spider silk glowed when the sun found it. He learned the way her brow pinched whenever she reached for the right word, and the way it released when she found it. He learned she loved mangoes but picked cranberries out of scones. He learned that music calmed her only if it had a piano somewhere in it. "A heartbeat you can hear," she'd said. Marissa learned the architecture of his silences. They weren't walls, they were rooms with good light. In those pauses he wasn't drifting away, he was noticing. Faint shadows along a window frame, the way condensation beaded into constellations on a glass, the resilience of a dandelion between paving stones. She learned he never claimed genius for a painting, even when a professor called his work arresting. She learned he didn't like to part with canvases. "They're not just pictures, they're time capsules," he'd say, half apologetic. They developed rituals, those gentle agreements that knit 2 lives together without ceremony. She brought him tea when his hands were stained with ultramarine, holding the mug to his mouth because she didn't want him to put the brush down. He proofread her papers for cadence, circling sentences and writing "this breathes" in the margins. He left sketches in her mailbox, 10-second gestures of people on benches or birds in motion, signed with a tiny H tucked into a corner. She tucked quotations into his backpack, the kind that looked simple until they didn't. Attention is the rarest and purest form of generosity. Simone Weil. There were long afternoons in the studio when Marissa perched on a stool, her knees tucked to her chest, while Hayden worked. Paint spoke in its own tempo. Layers, patience, waiting for what could not be rushed. They talked in that liminal space about her cognitive psych seminar and why memory sometimes feels truer than fact, about the first time he saw a Turner in person and cried before he knew he was crying. Sometimes they didn't talk at all. It was a language anyway. "Do you ever worry you'll run out?" she asked once, chin on her forearms, watching the brush glide. "Of paint. Of newness." He considered brush hovering. "Not if I keep looking. The world keeps giving. My only job is to keep saying yes." She smiled, eyes warming. "That's a very you answer. And yours." "I don't think we run out," she said. "I think we will stop listening. The mind repeats what we rehearse. If we rehearse our attention, life stays loud." He set the brush down and looked at her as though she'd nudged the universe 2 degrees. "Will you write that down? I want to remember it exactly." Evenings became chapters. They ordered takeaway and ate on the studio floor because the table had been annexed by a canvas the size of a door. He read her Rilke. She read him Mary Oliver. Sometimes they swapped roles. He chose the poem, she chose the painting that paired with it. As a private museum hung in the air between them, they spoke of love carefully, as if the word were a bird that might spook, but they didn't avoid it. They let it find its level, the way a river does. When exams crept up, they made the library a geography of small mercies. She brought noise-canceling headphones for him because graphite scratching on paper irritated his concentration. He learned which corner desk near the north window made her feel safest. They rewarded study hours with tiny adventures, a detour to the greenhouse where humidity fogged his glasses, a 2 a.m. mission to hunt for vending machines that sold the good chocolate, 10 minutes lying on the amphitheater stage while naming constellations badly and with confidence. And the phone calls, those nights when their schedules refused to align, and technology became the thread. They talked until the battery reddened into warning. They talked until dawn was a rumor against the blinds. Some calls were laughter stacked upon laughter. Others were quiet, their breath proof enough of closeness. Once, during a thunderstorm that found the campus like a drum, she admitted she was afraid of becoming what other people wanted. "What do you want to become?" he asked, voice rough with sleep. "Honest," she whispered, and lightning turned her room silver for a heartbeat. "And brave." "You already are," he said, meaning it the way paint means pigment. They discovered the July coincidence almost by accident, 2 birthdays within days of each other. It felt like the universe was showing off. She baked a cake far too ambitious for the dorm oven, and he pretended not to notice the slightly charred edges because the frosting was a poem. He painted her a small canvas no larger than a hardback book. A lake at dawn, the surface unbroken except for one skimming swallow. She stared at it for a long time, fingertips almost touching the horizon line. "What's the title?" she asked. He shook his head. "It doesn't have one. All good things are named." "You name it," he said. "It's a gift. Your language belongs on it." She wrote a single word on the back in a script he would later memorize, beginning. Her present to him was a notebook, linen-bound and the color of fresh moss. Inside the front cover she wrote, "For your unspoken sentences. For the paintings that haven't been painted yet. For what you don't want to forget." He carried it everywhere, as though his steadier heartbeat depended on it. They celebrated with a train ride to a nearby town that had a farmer's market and a second-hand bookshop that smelled like dust and lemon furniture polish. They ate peaches over a bin because they were so ripe they demanded a place for the spill. Juice ran down their wrists, and they laughed until the shopkeeper shooed them outside with a smile. He bought a battered copy of Letters to a Young Poet. She found a psychology text from the 70s with marginalia like treasure maps. On the platform home, he rested his head on her shoulder, and time briefly, blessedly, stopped. The art department hosted a midsummer salon. Students could pin anything to the walls. Finished pieces, works in progress, even questions written large. Hayden's canvas, the one he'd been circling for months, finally stood on its easel, taller than both of them. It was not a portrait, and yet it was. Blues beneath umbers. A field of light textured so subtly you had to lean in to feel it gather under your ribs. If you stood long enough, the painting seemed to breathe. "I'm nervous," he confessed, rubbing his thumb where a scar cut a pale crescent through the paint-stained pad. "Not because people will see it. Because you will." "I already have," she said, stepping closer. "When you weren't looking." He almost laughed. "What do you see?" She didn't answer at first, only let her eyes travel the length of it. "It feels like listening," she said finally. "Like the aftermath of a beautiful noise. Not silence, something alive that lingers when the sound is gone. It's the moment after the truth. He swallowed. That's the closest anyone's come. She reached for his hand, not shy, not performative, simply sure. He didn't realize how cold his fingers had been until hers warmed them. For a handful of seconds, everything extraneous fell away. The angular chatter of critique, the clink of glasses, the hum of fluorescent lights. The painting was held. So did they. Later, when the crowd thinned, a professor approached Hayden with a careful, measured expression, the look of someone deciding where to place a new fact in a well-ordered mind. "You're ready," she said. "There's a residency in the autumn abroad. It's competitive, but your portfolio can hold the weight. It will sharpen you." Her eyes flicked to Marissa, then back. "Think about it." The word abroad found the room like a distant bell. Pleasant, important, not yet urgent. Hayden blinked as if woken gently. He nodded, thanked her, and tucked the information away like a note he'd read later, when the lights were softer. He didn't tell Marissa right away. Not because he meant to hide anything. Because he needed to find the right shelf for the possibility, the right sentence to place around it. Her hand was still in his when they left, and they walked home under a sky still warm from the day, their shadows keeping pace as though they were old friends. Summer broke apart into internships and shifts and days cut by errands. They kept close anyway. When they couldn't share hours, they shared fragments. The phone made a rope of their distance. There were mundane details: the laundromat ate my last sock again, this cannot be a chance, and sudden tenderness. I saw a child in yellow rain boots leap every puddle like it was a prize. I thought of the way you run downstairs, 3 steps at a time. Some nights they let the line fill with quiet while they worked. Her annotating journal articles with a set of pens and colors that meant things. Him mixing paint so carefully the palette looked like weather. Once, while she was doing a study about how practice changes the brain, she said, "You know the phrase neurons that fire together wire together? I think about it with people sometimes. How our repeated moments become pathways. The more we meet there, the easier it is to find." "And what's our pathway?" he asked. "Here," she said, tapping the phone against her cheek so he could hear the soft sound. "And also there," she added, a smile in her voice, "where paint dries slow." He wrote it down in the moss-green notebook. "Our pathway equals here plus where paint dries slowly." On an evening when the air tasted like rain that couldn't commit, they walked the perimeter of the campus lake. Geese pretended ownership. Willow branches combed the water. Marissa skipped stones badly and with glee. Hayden finally showed her the right angle, the right flick. On her 3rd try, the stone danced 4 times. She threw her hands up as if the sky had scored her. They sat on the dock, legs dangling, shoes barely missing the surface. A band from the music department rehearsed somewhere nearby. The saxophone kept apologizing and then forgiving itself. The light softened until the lake silvered. "Do you think it's possible," Marissa said, eyes on the far shore, "to love more than once in a lifetime with the same firstness?" He considered. "I think the heart's good at what it practices. If it practices closing, it will close elegantly. If it practices opening, it can be new again and again." She breathed out through her nose, a small sound that might have been relief. "Then I hope I practice right." "You will," he said, and meant we will, but didn't press the plural. A breeze lifted, carrying the crisp smell of leaves even though summer still wore its green face. Change had a way of sending postcards early. They played a game, questions they could pocket for later, to be answered when life asked for them. His, "What would your work look like if you weren't afraid?" Hers, "What would your love look like if you didn't apologize for its size?" They didn't solve them. They weren't meant to. They were compass points, not destinations. By the time autumn's first cool breath slid across campus again, they had mapped a private country between them. It had shorelines and shortcuts and a particular bench under a particular oak that was, unverifiably, theirs. If you'd asked either of them to define what they were, they'd likely have stumbled trying to find a word that held the quietness and the intensity and the everydayness. Together might have sufficed. On a Sunday that looked like a painting of a Sunday, with church bells somewhere far enough to be hopeful, Hayden carried a new canvas into the studio. Not large, not small, precisely the size of a confession. He'd been sketching a study for weeks, 2 figures side by side, not looking at one another, but drawn by a gravity that made their shadows touch. The background was not a place but a mood. Those first minutes after blue hour when the world forgets its edges. Marissa arrived with a bag of clementines and a grin that made the room change its mind about everything. She peeled one for him, her fingers bright with citrus oil. "What will this one be?" she asked, nodding at the canvas. He thought and then didn't. "The sound of your name when I say it in my head." She was quiet for a beat, then put the clementine segment to his mouth, and when he bit, the burst of sweetness hit like an answer. They worked there, parallel and companionable, until the sun slid low. She drafted an abstract for a paper on attention. He layered light where there wasn't any yet. Every so often he'd step back, squint, then move in again with a certainty he was learning to trust. She watched the painting take breath and wrote a sentence she would later highlight. "What we attend to grows real." Near evening, a message pinged on Hayden's phone. The subject line was bland in the way important messages often are. Residency application window open. He felt the shift, the faint earthquake of a door unlocking somewhere down a hallway. He didn't open it right away. He looked at Marissa, hair loosened by the day, pen behind her ear. He looked at the canvas mid-saying. He looked at his hands and found paint where paint always found him. "Everything okay?" she asked, noticing the way his shoulders had changed. He smiled. "Yeah, just later thing." "Later thing," she repeated, trusting him enough not to press. Trust, they were learning, is also a language. He put the phone face down, the notification haloing beneath like a tide under a boat, unseen but moving everything. When they left the studio, dusk had spooled itself around the trees. They stood at the threshold, reluctant to break the spell of a day well lived. "Walk me home?" she asked. "Always," he said, surprised by how true the word felt in his mouth. They passed the fountain where they'd first met, where coins slept with wishes attached. Marissa paused, then reached into her pocket and fished out a copper circle. "Another," Hayden teased. "Your last one didn't work?" "Oh, it worked," she said, eyes catching the last of the light. "That's why I'm hedging my bets." She tossed the coin, and for a moment it held the sky. They didn't know it yet, couldn't know it yet, but the shape of what they were building would be asked to hold more than ordinary days. Love would be asked its favorite question and then a harder one. But for now, for this chapter, they had a dock on a lake, a notebook with green linen, a painting that breathed even when they didn't touch it, and a July that arrived in duplicate like a promise signed twice. And sometimes that's enough, to start a life with the right kinds of conversations and the right amount of light. Chapter 4, Fading Echoes. The letter arrived dressed as an email, polite subject line, ordinary font, the kind of message that shouldn't be able to rearrange a life. Hayden read it once, then again, each pass making the room feel smaller. The residency was real. The portfolio review had not only gone well, it had opened a door he'd been pressing his shoulder against for years. 6 months. Abroad. A studio with Northlight and mentors whose names had lived on his syllabi like constellations. He should have hooped, should have thrown his hands up the way he did when paint finally found the color it had been missing. Instead, his first thought was of Marissa. He closed the laptop and stared at the blank canvas propped in the corner, the one he'd titled. Only in his head the afterwards. The air in the studio tasted faintly of linseed and citrus. Outside, the season was tilting. Summer's lushness had thinned into the first crispness of fall. He swallowed. Sentences crowded his ribs, and none of them were right. He texted her. "Can you meet me at our bench?" Her reply came almost immediately, 5 minutes. "Do I need snacks?" He smiled, grief-soft, at the way she was already comforting a future she didn't yet know. They met beneath the oak that had learned their names. The campus was a postcard of early autumn, maples surrendering their edges to ember, the lake holding sky like a polished coin. Marissa arrived in a cinnamon-colored sweater and hope. She took one look at his face and slid closer on the bench until their shoulders touched. "What happened?" she asked gently. He told her. He said the words that should have sounded like victory, and listened to how they changed shape as they moved through the air between them. Her eyes brightened at first, pride, love, that immediate lightning, of course they chose you, and then softened, then shadowed as the distance inside the sentence uncoiled. "How long?" she asked. 6 months, he said. "Maybe 8 if the extension comes through." "And where?" He gave the city a name that tasted like salt and light. She drew in a breath as if the world had turned cold too quickly. When would you leave? 6 weeks. Silence opened, not empty, but crowded with everything neither of them wanted to say. Hayden, she began, blinking hard. It's everything you've worked for. He reached for her hand as if he were steadying himself. It's not everything, he said. Don't, she whispered, and the word gentled. Don't choose between them yet. Let the truth be big before we try to make it small. They sat like that with the oak guarding the quiet, the bench holding their weight, the season listening. Finally, she said, promise me one thing. Anything. Let's tell the truth all the way through. No brave faces that are really masks. No pretending this won't hurt. We're better than that. We are, he said, and meant it like an oath. They rehearsed endings and beginnings in the weeks that followed, and sometimes they didn't know which was which. They made lists side by side at her kitchen table. Visas, immunizations, storage, the ridiculous detail of who would adopt his spider plant that refused to die. Between bullet points, they spoke the larger fears aloud, the ones that preferred corners. What if time stretches love too thin? What if the version we become won't fit the version we were? They calibrated a new kind of attention. Colors got brighter. Coffee tasted like a memory they were making on purpose. The walk from the studio to the lake became a pilgrimage. He painted faster, slower, truer, holding close and letting go in alternating strokes. She wrote more, the pages of her journals turning into small towns of thought. They kissed as if the calendar were a narrowing corridor and still found ways not to rush. One evening at the gallery, they stood before the afterwards. It had found itself somehow and was no longer waiting. The field of light had bloomed into a quiet that hummed. Marissa slipped her arm around his waist and leaned her head on his shoulder. What is it now? She asked softly. Us, he said. Even when we aren't in the same room. She nodded without moving. Hold me like you're holding that. He did. Goodbyes are choreography. Airports insist upon it. The day of departure arrived with breathless efficiency. Bags zipped, passport double-checked, phone chargers coiled like small snakes. Marissa braided her feelings into a neatness that betrayed their size. They rode to the terminal with fingers laced and didn't talk more than they had to. The words were too heavy to lug and too important to drop. At security, the line made a map of partings. Children clung then wriggled free. Lovers practiced the art of smiling while leaking at the edges. Hayden set his bag on the conveyor belt and turned back to her. The fluorescent lights were unkind, but love is stubborn with its own illumination. She looked beautiful as the truth. This isn't the end, he said, because the sentence demanded to be said by someone, and it was his turn. I know. Her voice shook. It's a door. I just hate doors. He kissed her soft then certain. Their foreheads rested together for a breath that tried and failed to be enough. Make your art, she whispered. Find new light and bring it back to me. Keep your courage, he whispered back. Write everything down. Even the parts that sting. They were not dramatic. No proclamations shouted across the concourse. But when he stepped into the river of travelers, and she stayed on the bank, the world made a sound only they heard. The soft tearing of a page removed very carefully from a notebook. She watched until the back of him became a crowd and then became no one. She stood there longer than she needed to, because sometimes dignity looks like refusing to hurry grief. When she finally turned, the automatic doors sighed, and the outside air met her like a question. The first week was an echo that couldn't find its source. She kept glancing at her phone to show him small miracles. The way rain had embroidered the window with a pattern like lace, the goose that had decided the middle of the walkway was sovereign territory, and every time the impulse arrived, so did the emptiness. She texted anyway. Made the tea too strong again. You'd hate it. He replied 12 minutes later with a photo of a sunlit studio and a caption that tasted like relief. North Light. It's everything, they say. They learned the new mathematics of time zones, how his dawn could hold hands with her late afternoon. They made rituals across distance. A photograph at 11:11 local time, wish, send. A 3-song call before she slept or he rose. No more, no less, keep it sacred. They sent each other sound. He recorded the swallows that stitched the sky above his window. She recorded the soft syncopation of rain in the stairwell. At first, the calls were buoyant, glinting. He spoke like a man who had found the river exactly where the map promised, and it was impossibly wider. Mentors who looked at his work and saw further than he knew it could go. A kiln-smelling cafeteria that served bread still warm. A museum down the street that changed what he thought he knew about blue. She cheered, meant it, wrote from his joy like it was a grammar she'd always wanted to learn. But even happiness throws shadows. Some nights the connection fuzzed and so did they. She would say, "How was your day?" And he would offer a highlight reel and tuck the loneliness behind it. He would ask, "How are you sleeping?" And she would confess to waking at 3:17 with the shape of him heavy beside an absence and then laugh so he wouldn't have to carry it. By week 4, their sentences developed carefulness. Not caution, but the kind of care you use with heirlooms. The phone became both a lifeline and a mirror. They could see each other, they could also see the distance. "Tell me something true," she said one night, turning her lamp off so he wouldn't notice the tiredness under her eyes. "I miss your shoulder," he said. "The left one. It's where I put my head when I don't know what I'm doing." She closed her eyes. "I miss the sound you make when a brushstroke goes right." He laughed softly. "I didn't know I made a sound." "You don't either," she said. "That's why I miss it." Seasons move even when we don't want them to. Green gave way to copper. The campus grew a scaffold of scarves. Marissa threw herself into her work with a tenderness that didn't let her off the hook. She tutored first years in the study center, taught them how to build habits that wouldn't break under stress, and reminded them that rest was not a reward but a resource. She ran along the lake path until her breath found a tunnel of quiet, and then she walked. At night, her journals filled and filled. She learned that grief isn't only for endings. It's also for transformations you didn't choose on purpose. Some days she felt strong in the way of oaks, rooted, wide-armed, patient. Some days she felt like a leaf spared by the wind only because it hadn't noticed her yet. She didn't hide from him either day, even when he hid his own roughness from her, because he wanted to be her easy place. Once, when the call connected and his voice arrived with a fatigue he hadn't disguised fast enough, she asked, "What did you eat today?" "Coffee," he said sheepishly. "A baguette tried to be lunch." She didn't scold. "Go make an omelette while I read you this paragraph. It deserves eggs." He cooked with the phone leaning against a jar of brushes. She read about working memory and attention, the gap between what we think we're doing and what we're actually doing, then said, "Your brain is not a mule. Don't load it and beat it and expect it to love you." "Fine," he said around a smile she could hear. "I'll be kinder. Starting now." "Starting now," she echoed, and for the first time in days her chest loosened. And yet, there were nights the phone became a metronome ticking the space between them. She would hang up and press her face into the pillow, and the room would hold its breath with her. He would end the call and stand in the studio with so much light and not enough warmth, and remind himself that generosity has to include the self or it hollows out. They learned to say, "I'm not okay tonight," and let that be an invitation instead of a problem to solve. They learned to end calls before unraveling. They learned that love sometimes looks like leaving the silence alone until it tells you what it needs. In late November, the residency offered Hayden the extension, 2 months more, a mentorship that would not come again soon. He read the email 3 times and then set his phone down as if it were hot. When he called, his voice already carried the shape of the yes he hadn't spoken. "Take it," Marissa said before he asked. "Please. I won't be the reason you don't." He winced. "You could never be the reason I don't. But you're always a reason I do." "Then do," she said, the word steady and brave and privately devastating. Afterwards, she put the phone face down and let herself fold the way paper does when it's meant to be a crane and must first accept the creases. Winter pressed its palm against the windows. Snow found the ledges and stayed. The days shortened into small cups you had to sip slowly or they'd be gone. Their lives, perfect on 2 separate graphs, kept failing to intersect. The calls continued, faithful as liturgy. But sometimes, after she pressed end, the sound of her apartment heater ticking, the upstairs neighbor practicing minor scales, the refrigerator's intermittent sigh grew louder than a crowd. Sometimes, after he put the phone down, the studio's light went from holy to interrogating. Depression doesn't always arrive in a storm. Sometimes it drifts in like fog, and by the time you notice it, your landmarks have already blurred. Marissa had names for it, frameworks she could lean on, tools she pressed into other palms each week at the tutoring center. Knowing the map did not mean she could teleport to the shore. She didn't hide. "It's heavy," she told him one night, fingers tucked into the sleeves of a sweater that smelled like him because she hadn't washed it yet. "Not all the time. Enough of the time." He closed his eyes. "I'm sorry." "I'm not asking you to fix it," she said gently. "Just sit with me in it a while." He did, on the other end of the world, but also somehow right there, saying nothing until nothing loosened. He told her the truth too. "Sometimes I feel like I'm cheating on the painting with the future," he admitted. "Like I'm thinking about what it will mean before I've let it be." She smiled into the dark. "Then let it be. We'll make sense later. Promise. Promise." The morning he was due to fly home, the airport reversed the choreography. The arrivals board became benevolent. The crowd's impatience softened into a specific hope. Marissa stood at the rail and pressed her palm to the cold metal because her hands needed a place for their longing. When Hayden finally rounded the corner, travel-tired and beautiful, she didn't cry. She walked to him with the quiet of someone who had carried a candle through a tunnel and found herself outdoors at last. He folded into her, and the world made another sound only they heard, the gentle knitting together of what distance had thinned. But that is another chapter's scene. For now, what matters is this. Love had not solved time. Time had not dismantled love. They weren't the same two people who had kissed under a string of festival lights and promised each other bravery. They were larger, stretched, tempered, more honest. And the echoes that had faded in the hard months hadn't vanished. They had taught the two of them how to listen with new ears. On the walk home from the arrival's gate, her hand found his, and he threaded their fingers like a prayer. Snow caught in her hair. He shook his head and laughed, low and grateful. "What?" she asked. "Nothing," he said, and then told the truth. "Everything. You. Here." Their breath unscrolled in white ribbons that braided and disappeared. Behind them, doors opened and closed. Ahead of them, doors waited. They would open them one by one. Chapter 5, Uncharted Paths. The weeks after Hayden's return unfolded like pages from a book that couldn't decide if it was comedy or tragedy. Some moments felt gilded with the sweetness of reunion. Coffee dates that lingered longer than intended, quiet evenings curled on the studio floor, laughter so loud they startled the silence of the library. But woven among those threads were shadows neither of them wanted to name. Opportunities pressed in on Hayden like waves against a cliff, relentless and thrilling, while Marissa felt her own life tugging her toward questions with no clear answers. At first, they tried to cling to the familiar, the bench beneath the oak, the fountain where they had first collided with fate, the rituals of tea, sketches, and poems. But life had a way of intruding. Hayden's professors praised his residency portfolio with urgency in their voices, as if afraid the fire might burn out before it consumed the whole world. Invitations poured in. Group shows, gallery introductions, late-night workshops. He said yes more often than he should have, afraid of losing momentum. Marissa tried not to feel the distance. She knew he loved her. Every look, every touch, every brush of his hand across hers confirmed it. But there was a tautness in him now, a restlessness that sometimes made her wonder if he was already leaning into a future that didn't have room for her. She told herself it was her own fear talking. Yet fear has a way of tinting every glance, every silence. One night, she surprised him by visiting the studio unannounced. She expected to find him alone, paint smudged across his hands, bent over a canvas the way he always was when the rest of the campus slept. Instead, she found him with Sophia. The woman's hair was pulled into a messy knot, streaked with flecks of bronze paint that glimmered under the fluorescent light. Sparks of metal and fragments of wire lay scattered around her workspace, sculptures rising like creatures half-born. She was laughing, full-bodied, unrestrained, while Hayden gestured wildly with his brush, explaining some point about color theory. Marissa froze at the door, the warmth in her chest cooling into something brittle. Hayden noticed first. "Marissa." His face broke into a grin, genuine, unguarded. He crossed the room quickly, pressing a paint-smeared kiss to her temple. "I didn't know you were coming. Sophia, this is Marissa." "Marissa, Sophia." Sophia wiped her hands on a rag and offered a bright smile. "So you're the famous Marissa. I've heard so much about you." Famous. The word lodged oddly in Marissa's mind. She smiled politely, but something in her chest shifted. They didn't stay long that night. Hayden, oblivious to the undercurrent, walked her back, recounting Sophia's brilliance with steel, and the way she pushed him out of his comfort zone. Marissa nodded, listening, but inside she wrestled with feelings she wasn't proud of: jealousy, insecurity, fear that Hayden's fire might one day be fueled by someone else. At the same time, Alex was becoming a more constant presence in Marissa's days. It began innocently: study groups, shared notes, conversations about memory and cognition that spilled over into late-night coffee runs. Alex was steady while Hayden was stormy. He didn't burn, he glowed. With him, there was no fear of being left behind, no sense of competing with something larger than herself. One afternoon, after hours buried in research, Marissa found herself walking with Alex along the lake. The water shimmered with late sunlight, geese carving slow trails across its surface. "You look tired," Alex said, glancing at her with concern. Marissa smiled faintly. "Maybe I am. Sometimes it feels like I'm holding two worlds in my hands, and I don't know if I'm strong enough." "Hayden?" he asked gently. She nodded. Alex didn't press, didn't pry. He only said, "Strength isn't about never dropping anything. It's about choosing what you refuse to let go of." His words lingered with her long after they parted. Neither Hayden nor Marissa crossed any lines. Their love remained intact, burning, real. But both felt the tremors, the pull of companionship that wasn't theirs, the temptation of easier roads, the quiet guilt of even imagining a different path. Hayden hated the flicker of admiration he sometimes felt for Sophia's ferocity, her ability to dismantle his artistic defenses without apology. He would catch himself thinking of her critique while working on a canvas, and then curse himself for letting her voice intrude. Marissa hated the comfort she sometimes felt with Alex, the way he listened without distraction, the way he seemed content to simply be present. She never compared him to Hayden aloud, but the thought crept in: what if love didn't have to feel like a storm? They buried these questions, but silence did not smother them. Silence made them echo louder. One evening, they found themselves back at the fountain, the water glittering beneath the lantern light. The place that had once felt like the purest beginning now felt like a mirror, reflecting the cracks that distance and ambition had etched between them. "You've been distracted," Marissa said softly, not accusing, just observing. "I know." Hayden rubbed the back of his neck. "I'm trying, Marissa. I don't want you to feel forgotten," she finished for him. He flinched. Her eyes softened immediately. "I know you love me. That's not the question. Sometimes I wonder if love is enough to hold everything else together." Hayden's throat tightened. He reached for her hand, lacing their fingers. "It has to be," he said, more fiercely than he intended. But even as he said it, both of them knew the truth. Love was strong, but it was not simple. And the paths ahead of them were uncharted, full of shadows and crossroads neither could yet see. Chapter 6: Ties That Echo. The days blurred into weeks, and though Hayden and Marissa still walked the same paths, sat at the same fountain, and kissed in the same doorways, something indefinable had shifted. Love was still there, strong, radiant, unyielding, but it was no longer untouched. The world, with its opportunities and its interruptions, had found cracks in its closeness and pressed its fingers against them. Hayden's calendar filled like a canvas with too many strokes. Professors wanted him to assist in advanced studios. Gallery owners invited him to openings where champagne flowed and critics lingered with sharp eyes. His name was beginning to circulate, not just at Greenhill but beyond. It was everything he had dreamed of. Yet sometimes he looked at his reflection and wondered if he was becoming the kind of artist who had time for everyone except the woman he loved. Marissa tried to be patient. She told herself this was what she wanted for him, that love meant cheering him forward, even when it meant she was left behind. But there were nights when she sat with her journal open and could not write a word because the ache in her chest was louder than anything she might put on the page. Sophia became a constant presence in Hayden's creative life. They collaborated on projects, their studios side by side, their conversations fast and urgent. She was a whirlwind, bold, opinionated, unafraid to tell him when a piece fell flat or when he was playing it safe. Hayden admired her honesty even when it stung. Sometimes, he caught himself repeating her words later, as though testing them for truth. One evening, after hours of wrestling with a stubborn canvas, Hayden slumped in his chair, rubbing his temples. "Too polite," Sophia said, gesturing at the painting. "It's beautiful, sure. But beauty isn't enough. You're Hayden. You should be making work that scares you." He looked at her, startled by the fierceness in her tone. "And what if I fail?" he asked quietly. "Then fail spectacularly," she shot back, her eyes blazing. "But don't you dare waste your talent on safe." Her words echoed long after she left, finding their way into his dreams. He hated that they did. He hated, too, the small spark of gratitude he felt. Marissa, meanwhile, found herself spending more time with Alex. He had a way of noticing when she was unraveling even before she admitted it to herself. When she snapped her pen in frustration over a particularly dense article, Alex wordlessly slid a new one across the table. When she grew restless in the library, he suggested a walk, no questions asked. One evening, as they strolled beneath the glow of campus lanterns, Alex said, "You carry so much, Marissa. It's like you think the world will fall apart if you let go for even a second." She laughed softly. "Maybe it will." "It won't," he said, his voice steady. "And even if it did, maybe that's not your job. Maybe your job is just to be." The simplicity of his words struck her more deeply than she expected. Despite these new orbits, Hayden and Marissa clung to each other. Their love had weathered distance before. Surely it could weather distraction now. They carved out time, late-night walks, quick lunches, phone calls between classes. Each moment felt precious but also fragile, like glass stretched too thin. One night, sitting at their bench beneath the oak, Marissa asked, "Do you ever feel like we're slipping?" Hayden's chest tightened. "Sometimes, but we always find our way back." "What if one day we don't?" she whispered. He reached for her hand, gripping it tightly. "Then I'll keep searching until I do. 'Cause you're it, Marissa. No matter what else happens, you're it." She wanted to believe him. She almost did. The semester wore on. Hayden's name was attached to more shows, more deadlines. Marissa was offered an internship at a research lab that would demand long hours of her own. Their conversations, once endless, began to shrink. They filled the gaps with reassurances, with "I love yous" whispered into phones and scribbled on napkins. But both felt the weight of what they weren't saying. And yet, for all the strain, their bond refused to snap. It bent, it groaned, but it held. Because underneath the noise, the echo of who they were, the girl with the laughter like music, the boy with the paint-smeared hands, remained. It was at the fountain again that the question finally rose. Marissa stared at the rippling water, her voice barely audible. "Hayden, what if love isn't enough?" The words cut through the night like glass shattering. He turned to her, eyes wide, throat dry. He had no answer, not one that would soothe them both. The silence between them was louder than the fountain. And in that silence, both of them wondered if the paths they had chosen, paths that had once run so beautifully together, were now diverging into something neither of them could control. Chapter 7: Shattered Reflections. Winter wrapped Green Hill in a hushed kind of silence. Snow glazed the branches, the lake froze in patches that cracked and sang under the weight of skaters, and the lamplight turned every breath into a wisp of white ribbon. The campus moved more slowly now, bundled, shuffling, quieter. But inside Hayden and Marissa, noise was building. Their love had not broken, but it had fractured, hairline cracks that deepened with each passing day. And like ice under pressure, the fractures were beginning to sound. Hayden's nights grew longer, his canvases more daring, his professors more insistent. Sophia was almost always there, sharp-tongued, demanding, unrelenting. "You play safe when you're scared," she told him one evening, gesturing at a canvas that hovered between brilliance and hesitation. "But fear doesn't belong in art. What are you so afraid of, Hayden?" He set down his brush too hard, splattering paint. "I'm not afraid." "Then prove it." Her voice needled him, but it also pierced through his doubt. He stayed until dawn, painting with a ferocity that startled even himself. When Sophia returned in the morning, she whistled low at the transformation. "Now that," she said, "is the Hayden people will remember." He should have felt proud. Instead, he felt guilty because when he thought of Marissa, all he could think of was how little he'd seen her that week. Marissa, meanwhile, found herself leaning more often on Alex. He didn't demand brilliance. He didn't pull at her insecurities. He only sat with her in them. One night, after a particularly rough day, she collapsed into a chair at the cafe, burying her face in her hands. Alex slid a mug across the table. "Chamomile. You look like you need something that remembers how to breathe." She smiled weakly, lifting the cup. "You always know." He shrugged, sipping his own coffee. "Not always. But I pay attention." The words struck her harder than they should have. Hayden paid attention too, but lately his attention was scattered, stretched thin across canvases and critiques. Alex's focus, by contrast, felt like sunlight warming a single window. She hated the part of her that wanted to stay in that sunlight. It was inevitable that the tension would spill over. One evening, Marissa came to Hayden's studio and found him asleep at his easel, Sophia's coat draped over the back of a chair. The sight hit her like a blow. When Hayden stirred awake, blinking at her, she said quietly, "You didn't come home last night." "I lost track of time," he said, his voice hoarse with sleep. "With Sophia?" He flinched. "We were working." "That's what you call it?" Her voice shook, not with accusation but with pain. He stood quickly, crossing to her. "Marissa, nothing happened. I swear it. You're the one I love. Always you." She looked at him, tears brimming. "Then why does it feel like I'm losing you?" He had no answer because at that moment, he wondered if he was losing himself too. The breaking point came weeks later. They were at the fountain again, the place that had always been their anchor. Snow dusted the rim, the water running slow and muted beneath the ice. Marissa's voice cracked as she whispered, "Hayden, do you ever wonder if we're holding on to something that's already broken?" The words shattered the air between them like glass. Hayden's heart seized. "No, don't say that. We're not broken, Marissa. We can't be." Her tears fell, glistening like shards. "Then why does it hurt so much just to stay?" He reached for her hand, but she pulled away, wrapping her arms around herself. For the first time since they met, Hayden felt a silence between them that even love couldn't immediately bridge. That night, alone in his studio, Hayden stared at his reflection in the darkened window. Behind him, the canvas glowed faintly, unfinished, aching. His reflection fractured on the glass, two versions of himself, overlapping but not whole. At the same time, Marissa sat in her dorm, Alex's words echoing in her ears. "Strength isn't about never dropping anything. It's about choosing what you refuse to let go of." She pressed her hands to her chest and asked herself the question she had been avoiding for months. What if love wasn't enough? And though neither said it aloud, both Hayden and Marissa felt the terrifying truth settle into their bones. Whatever happened next would change everything. Chapter 8. Whispers of Temptation. The silence that had fallen between Hayden and Marissa after the fountain lingered like a fog neither of them could escape. They still texted, still called, still met when their schedules allowed, but every word seemed to carry a shadow now. Every touch felt fragile, as though it might splinter if pressed too hard. Love was still there. It pulsed in their veins, burned in their eyes, ached in their hearts. But alongside it came something new, doubt. And doubt, once invited, has a way of speaking louder than truth. In the studio, Hayden worked with a ferocity that frightened him. He poured himself into his canvases until his body ached, as though painting harder could drown out the echo of Marissa's words. What if we're holding on to something that's already broken? Sophia was there more often than not. She pushed him, challenged him, refused to let him hide in safety. "You're painting with fear again," she told him one night, watching as he hesitated with his brush. "Don't think. Feel. Show me the Hayden who paints like the world is on fire." Frustration boiled in him. "Not everything has to burn, Sophia." "Maybe not," she said softly, stepping closer, her eyes catching his. "But maybe you do." Her words sent a jolt through him. For a heartbeat, the air between them changed. He stepped back quickly, guilt flashing hot across his chest. Sophia only smirked, returning to her sculpture. "Someday you'll stop running from yourself." But Hayden knew it wasn't himself he was running from. It was the temptation of someone who wasn't Marissa. Marissa found solace in the quiet steadiness of Alex. He never pressed, never pried. He only offered presence, and sometimes that was enough. One evening, she broke down in the library, overwhelmed by coursework and the heaviness of her heart. Alex closed her books gently, guiding her outside into the cool night air. "Breathe," he said simply. You don't have to carry everything at once." She let the tears fall then, not caring who saw. Alex wrapped his coat around her shoulders, standing close but not too close. His restraint made her ache all the more. "You deserve peace, Marissa," he said softly. "Don't forget that." For a fleeting moment, she wondered what it would feel like to lean fully into him, to let herself be carried instead of always carrying. The thought terrified her. Hayden and Marissa tried to hold on. They clung to rituals, the bench, the fountain, hurried lunches, late-night calls. But each moment was tinged with the awareness of how much they were both withholding. One night, as they sat in Hayden's studio surrounded by the smell of paint and metal, Marissa whispered, "I miss us." He dropped his brush, pulling her into his arms. "We're still us," he said fiercely. But even as he said it, both of them felt the truth pressing in. They were and they weren't. The breaking point came slowly like water carving stone. Sophia's presence grew sharper. She teased Hayden, provoked him, challenged him until his heart pounded with adrenaline that felt too much like desire. He told himself it was only art. He told himself Marissa was his anchor. But anchors too can feel heavy. Marissa, meanwhile, found herself meeting Alex more often. Study sessions blurred into conversations about life, about love, about the possibility of futures that didn't demand so much breaking. She told herself it was friendship. She told herself Hayden was her forever. But forever felt distant, and Alex was right there. It was late one night when the threads finally twisted. Hayden stood in his studio, staring at a canvas half-finished, his hands trembling. Sophia stood behind him, close enough that he could feel the heat of her breath. "You're brilliant, Hayden," she murmured. "And you deserve someone who sees it without asking you to be less." At the same time, Marissa sat with Alex at the cafe, her head resting against the window. "Sometimes," she whispered, "I'm so tired of being strong." Alex's hand brushed hers, hesitant, questioning, electric. Both Hayden and Marissa froze in different places, different moments, hearts hammering, choices teetering on the edge. And as the night deepened, the same question echoed in both of their souls. What if temptation wins? Chapter 9, Fragile Vows. Snow blanketed Green Hill like a fresh canvas, white and untouchable. The air carried the sharpness of winter, each breath crisp enough to sting. Students hurried between buildings with scarves pulled high, their laughter puffing into clouds that vanished as quickly as they appeared. The campus looked serene, but inside Hayden and Marissa, storms churned. Their love had not broken, not yet, but it trembled like glass on the verge of a crack. Every word, every glance, every silence waited with what they weren't saying. In his studio, Hayden painted furiously, his strokes wild and unrestrained. He tried to drown out the memory of Sophia's words. "You deserve someone who sees you without asking you to be less." It wasn't betrayal, not yet, but it was close enough to make his stomach twist with shame. Every time Marissa smiled at him, trusting, he felt the sting of his silence. He told himself Sophia meant nothing. He told himself Marissa was his only truth. But temptation whispered differently, and Hayden knew he had to fight harder than he ever had before. Marissa, meanwhile, avoided the cafe where she and Alex had nearly crossed a line. She told herself it had been a moment of weakness, nothing more. Yet she couldn't forget the warmth of his hand brushing hers, the way he had looked at her as though he saw every fracture in her heart and still wanted to hold it. She hated herself for the thought. She loved Hayden, fiercely, completely. But love, she was learning, was not always enough to silence loneliness. One evening, they met at the fountain again. Snow dusted its edges, the water running sluggish beneath a thin crust of ice. Hayden reached for her hand, and she let him, but their fingers twined with less certainty than before.
"I'm scared," Marissa whispered.
"Of what?" Hayden asked, his breath visible in the cold. "That one day, we'll wake up and realize we're only holding on out of habit." His heart clenched. "No. Marissa, listen to me, I love you. That's not a habit. That's a choice. Every day I choose you." She looked up at him, her eyes glistening. "Then promise me we'll fight, no matter how hard it gets. Promise me we won't let go." "I promise," he said, his voice breaking. "I swear it." They kissed then, the kind of kiss that was both desperate and tender, as if trying to stitch together the cracks with lips alone. Snow fell around them, soft and relentless, coating their hair, their coats, their joined hands. For a moment, the world seemed to still. For a moment, the promise felt strong enough to carry them through anything. But even vows can be fragile. And though they clung to each other with everything they had, both of them knew deep down that love was no longer the simple, unshaken thing it had once been. Later that night, as Hayden walked Marissa back to her dorm, his phone buzzed. A message from Sophia lit the screen. "I need to see you. Tonight." At the same time, Marissa's phone vibrated in her pocket. A text from Alex. "Are you okay? You don't have to go through this alone." Neither spoke of the messages. Neither admitted the temptation pulling at them from opposite directions. But as they kissed goodnight and went their separate ways, the echoes of those unread words hung between them, heavier than the winter air. Chapter 10 Breaking Points. Winter deepened, turning Green Hill into a world of muted grays and silvers. The snow no longer looked fresh and magical. It was trampled, dirty, piled against walls like burdens no one wanted to carry. Hayden and Marissa felt the same, worn, pressed down, no longer untouched. They still loved each other. Fiercely. Completely. But love was no longer a soft place to land. It was a battlefield, and both of them were tired of fighting. Hayden spent more nights in the studio than in his own bed. Sophia was always there, as though she had made a vow to stand wherever he faltered. "You're killing yourself," she told him one night as he worked until his hands cramped. "I can't stop," he muttered. "Then at least stop pretending you're doing this alone." She stepped closer, too close, her voice low. "You're brilliant, Hayden, but brilliance doesn't survive without fuel. Let me be your fuel." The words unsettled him, not because of what she said, but because of the way part of him wanted to believe it. He pulled back, ashamed, his chest burning. Marissa was his fuel. Marissa was his everything. Yet Sophia's presence lingered like smoke, filling every corner of the studio. Marissa found herself spiraling. Her internship consumed her days. Hayden's distance consumed her nights. She tried to stay strong, but cracks widened each time she opened her phone and saw no new messages. Each time she passed the studio and saw Sophia's shadow through the glass. Alex noticed. He always noticed. "You're fading, Marissa," he said gently during one of their late walks. "You're giving so much that there's nothing left for yourself." She laughed bitterly. "That's what love is, isn't it? Giving until it hurts." "Not love," Alex said softly. "Not the kind you deserve." The words sank into her, dangerous and comforting all at once. It happened on a Friday night, the kind of night that should have been ordinary. They met at the bench beneath the oak, snow dripping from its bare branches, the world hushed. Marissa's eyes were tired, rimmed red from holding back too much. "Hayden, I can't keep doing this." He stiffened. "Doing what?" "Competing. With your art. With Sophia. With everything that keeps you from seeing me." Anger sparked in him. Anger born of exhaustion, fear, guilt. "You think I don't see you? Marissa, you're the only thing I see. Everything I do with you in mind. Then why do I feel invisible?" Her voice cracked, breaking something inside him. He reached for her, but she stepped back, tears spilling freely now. "I love you, Hayden, but love shouldn't feel like this. It shouldn't feel like I'm always waiting for scraps of you." His throat tightened, his own eyes stinging. "And what about Alex? You think I don't notice? You think I don't know you found someone to lean on when I'm not there?" The words hit like a slap. For a long, painful moment, neither spoke. Their breaths came ragged, clouding the cold air between them. Finally, Marissa whispered, "Maybe we're both guilty. Maybe we're both breaking." Hayden shook his head violently. "No, we can fix this. We have to. Because if we don't..." His voice cracked. "I can't lose you, Marissa. I can't." She looked at him through tears, love and sorrow warring in her gaze. "Then prove it. Choose me. Not your fear. Not your art. Not Sophia. Me." He wanted to shout yes, to swear it, to carve it into the night sky. But the truth caught in his throat, heavy and suffocating. He was torn between the love that had shaped him and the ambition that was consuming him. And in his hesitation, Marissa saw everything. She turned, walking away before he could stop her, her footsteps crunching into the snow. Hayden stood frozen, watching the distance widen with every step. His heart screamed at him to run after her, to fall to his knees if he had to. But his body stayed rooted, paralyzed by fear and pride. Marissa didn't look back. When she reached the fountain, she stopped, her reflection fractured on the thin sheet of ice. She whispered into the night, "God, if love isn't enough, then what is?" Hayden sank onto the bench, his hands trembling, his breath ragged. Behind him, his phone buzzed again. Sophia's name glowing on the screen. He didn't move. He couldn't. Chapter 11. Crossroads of the Heart. The days after their argument felt like walking through glass. Everything looked the same, the campus paths, the fountain, the oak bench, but each step carried the risk of breaking something fragile. Hayden and Marissa texted less, called less, saw each other less. And when they did, silence did most of the talking. Hayden buried himself in the studio, as though the canvases might hold answers his heart refused to give. He painted furiously, paint dripping down like tears, hands aching from the strain. But the more he tried to drown himself in color, the louder Marissa's words rang. "Then prove it. Choose me. Not your fear. Not your art. Not Sophia. Me." Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her face. Not in anger, not in accusation, but in that raw, breaking sorrow. Sophia noticed. She always noticed. "You're unraveling," she said one evening, watching him pace. "I'm fine," he muttered, though his voice cracked on the lie. "You're not. You can't keep pretending this is just about art. You're splitting yourself in two, and eventually one half is going to win." Her gaze was piercing, too close, too much. "And if it's not her?" she asked quietly. Hayden's breath caught. The question hung in the air like smoke. He wanted to scream that it would always be Marissa. But the silence stretched, accusing, until Sophia smirked and turned back to her sculpture. Marissa tried to focus on her internship, on lectures, on the endless pages of research. But her mind drifted, to Hayden's silence, to the exhaustion in his eyes, to the weight of their love bending under strain. Alex was there. Always there. One afternoon, she broke down in the library, overwhelmed by the weight of everything. Alex guided her outside into the winter light, his hand steady at her elbow. "You don't have to be strong all the time," he said softly. Her tears fell unbidden. "If I'm not, everything falls apart." "Then let it," Alex replied gently. "Let someone else hold it for once." She leaned into him then, just for a moment, letting herself rest against the steady rhythm of his breath. It wasn't betrayal, not yet, but it was close enough to terrify her. That evening, Marissa sat at her desk, staring at her open journal. The words refused to come. Finally, she wrote one line. "When does love become weight instead of wings?" At the same time, Hayden stood before his latest canvas, staring at the chaos of color that refused to resolve into form. His phone buzzed. A message from Marissa. "Can we talk?" His chest tightened. He typed yes, then hesitated. He looked at Sophia, at the unfinished painting, at the reflection of himself in the window. He deleted the word. His fingers hovered. Finally, he shut off the phone. Across campus, Marissa waited, staring at her own screen until the silence grew heavy enough to choke. She closed her eyes, whispering, "Maybe that's the answer." Marissa and Alex walked across campus, their laughter faint but real, cutting briefly through her fog. At the same moment, Hayden emerged from the studio with Sophia at his side, her hand brushing his arm as she handed him a sketch. Their eyes met across the courtyard. Time slowed, the winter air sharp as glass. Hayden froze. Marissa froze. And for the first time, the truth of their distance stood visible, undeniable, for them both, and for the world watching. Chapter 12. Unraveling Threads. The courtyard moment hung in their memories like a scar that refused to heal. Hayden and Marissa had faced distance, ambition, and doubt, but this, seeing each other standing beside someone else, had cut deeper than words ever could. Hayden replayed it over and over. Marissa's laughter beside Alex, her shoulders relaxed in a way they hadn't been with him for weeks. The sight had gutted him, left him raw with jealousy and fear. Marissa replayed it too. Sophia's hand brushing Hayden's arm, the casual intimacy of it, the way Sophia seemed to belong in his world of art and chaos. The image lodged like glass in her chest. Neither spoke of it directly, but silence is not neutral. Silence carries weight, and theirs grew heavier by the day. Back in the studio, Hayden threw himself into painting with a violence that frightened even him. His canvases grew darker, streaked with jagged lines, colors colliding like storms. He didn't stop to eat, to rest, to breathe. Sophia noticed. She always noticed. "She's slipping away," Sophia murmured one night, watching him tear another canvas off its frame. "Don't," Hayden snapped. "I'm not wrong," she said, stepping closer. "You're breaking yourself over someone who doesn't even see you anymore." His chest tightened. "You don't know her." Sophia's gaze softened. "Maybe I don't, but I know you. And I know what it's like to give your heart to someone who doesn't know how to hold it." For a moment, Hayden let himself wonder, what if Sophia was right? What if Marissa no longer had room for him in the life she was building? The thought terrified him. Marissa, meanwhile, drowned in her own confusion. Alex's presence had become a bomb she didn't want to admit she needed. He asked for nothing, demanded nothing, simply existed beside her with quiet strength. But each time he looked at her with that steady gaze, her guilt deepened. "You don't have to explain yourself to me," Alex said one afternoon, as they walked along the frozen lake. "I know you're still with him. I know you love him." Marissa swallowed hard. "Then why do you stay?" He hesitated, then answered simply, "Because I'd rather stand near your storm than far from your sunlight." Her chest ached. She wanted to tell him to stop, to pull back, to let her go. But instead she whispered, "You make it sound so easy." "It's not," he admitted. "But some things are worth the ache." The breaking point came days later. Hayden showed up at Marissa's dorm, eyes shadowed, hands trembling. "Who is he to you?" he demanded, his voice rough. She flinched. "Don't. I saw you with him, Marissa. Laughing. Like I wasn't even," his voice cracked. "Like I'm already gone." Her anger sparked, fueled by weeks of silence and suspicion. "And what about Sophia? Do you think I don't see the way she looks at you? The way you let her?" "It's not the same," he shot back. "It is," she whispered, tears brimming. "It's the same." The words hung between them like knives. For a long moment, neither moved. Neither spoke. The weight of everything unsaid pressed them apart more effectively than any distance ever had. That night, Marissa sat alone at the fountain, her reflection fractured on the ice. She whispered, "Maybe love isn't about holding on. Maybe it's about knowing when to let go." At the same time, Hayden stood in his studio, Sophia's hand brushing his shoulder. "You don't have to keep breaking for her," she murmured. And across campus, Alex stared at his phone, Marissa's number glowing on the screen, his thumb hovering over the call button. 3 choices, 3 paths, 1 love stretched to breaking. The threads were unraveling, and soon one of them would snap. Chapter 13: Fractured Choices. The days following their confrontation stretched thin and brittle, as glass pulled too far. Hayden and Marissa spoke little, and when they did, every word was lined with thorns. Love still tethered them, but the rope was fraying. One wrong pull, and it might snap altogether. Hayden haunted the studio, the place that had always been a sanctuary but now felt like a cage. Sophia was there more often than not, orbiting him with a mix of challenge and sympathy. "You're wearing yourself down," she said one evening, watching him scrape paint across the canvas with desperate strokes. He didn't answer. "You can't keep pretending she's the only one who sees you," Sophia pressed. "You're allowed to want more than her silence." He turned sharply. "Stop." But the damage was done. The thought had already rooted itself. What if Sophia was right? Still, when Hayden closed his eyes, it wasn't Sophia he saw. It was Marissa, her laughter like music, her eyes lit with belief in him, her voice whispering promises under starlight. Marissa drowned in her own questions. Alex's presence had become too steady, too comforting. He didn't demand she explain, didn't ask her to choose. He only stood beside her, his constancy like a lighthouse in her storm. One evening, as they sat in the library, Marissa whispered, "Why are you still here, Alex? Why do you put yourself through this?" He closed his book, meeting her eyes. "Because I'd rather risk the pain of loving you than the emptiness of never trying." Her heart clenched. She wanted to tell him to stop, to draw a line, to protect them both. But instead she looked away, guilt rising like a tide she couldn't outswim. Hayden and Marissa finally met again at the fountain, the place that had once been theirs. Snow fell softly, muffling the world, making their silence louder. Marissa's voice shook. "I don't know how much more of this I can take, Hayden." His chest tightened. Don't say that. Please. We can fix this. Can we? Her eyes glistened, because it feels like we're already breaking apart. He reached for her hand, desperate. Marissa, I love you. You're my everything. I don't know how to hold all of this, my art, my future, us. But I'm trying. Tears slipped down her cheeks. I'm trying too. But love shouldn't feel like a war. Their hands touched, lingered, then slipped apart. The distance between them felt wider than the courtyard ever had. That night, both of them lay awake in separate rooms, phones clutched in their hands, each typing and deleting the same words. We need to talk. At the same time, Sophia sent Hayden another message. You don't have to keep breaking for her. And Alex sent Marissa one too. You deserve more than pain. 2 choices. 2 temptations. 2 hearts on the edge of surrender. Neither Hayden nor Marissa knew which way they would turn, but both felt it in their bones. The next choice would change everything. Chapter 14, Echoes of Surrender. The air in Green Hill shifted with the slow surrender of winter. Snow no longer fell in sharp sheets but in soft, drifting flurries that clung to branches and melted in gentle silence. The fountain lay half-frozen, its once clear water dulled to slush, the rippling echoes barely audible now. To Hayden and Marissa, it felt symbolic. The place that had carried their laughter and vows now reflected only fragments, as though time itself had fractured their bond. Hayden stood in the studio long past midnight, brushes scattered like fallen soldiers, paint staining his hands. His latest canvas stared back at him, bold, restless, incomplete. It was everything he felt inside. Sophia leaned against the doorway, her sharp features softened by the glow of a desk lamp. You're exhausted, she said, folding her arms. I can't stop now, Hayden muttered, dragging color across the canvas as though it might tether him to sanity. You're not painting anymore, she countered. You're bleeding. Her words pierced him. He dropped the brush, rubbing paint-slicked fingers against his temples. Sophia crossed the room, close enough for him to feel her presence. Her hand hovered, almost brushing his arm, but she let it fall before touching him. You don't have to keep breaking for someone who doesn't see you, she whispered. Hayden's chest constricted. For one dangerous heartbeat, he almost turned into her warmth. Almost. But Marissa's face flared in his mind, the way she had first laughed at the festival, the way her voice still echoed at the fountain. He stepped back, his voice hoarse. Don't. Sophia searched his eyes, something unreadable flickering in her gaze. One day, Hayden, you'll realize what you're clinging to is already gone. She left him standing alone, heart pounding, guilt and relief warring within him. On the other side of campus, Marissa sat in the library, eyes blurred over notes she could no longer absorb. Her chest ached with the loneliness she didn't dare name. Alex slid into the seat across from her, setting a cup of tea on the table. You've been staring at the same page for 20 minutes. A weary laugh escaped her. Have I? Yes. His gaze softened. You're carrying too much again. I don't know how else to be, she admitted, voice breaking. He leaned forward, his words careful. Then maybe you need someone to carry some of it with you. Her throat tightened. She shouldn't let the words touch her. She shouldn't notice the steadiness of his eyes, the quiet strength in his presence. Yet she did. When she blinked back tears, Alex's hand moved instinctively across the table, brushing hers. Heat surged at the contact. For a breathless moment, the world narrowed to that touch. Marissa pulled back quickly, shame flooding her cheeks. I can't, she whispered. I know, Alex said, his voice steady. But you don't have to keep pretending you're not breaking. That night, Marissa sat cross-legged on her bed, journal open across her lap. The pen shook in her fingers, ink smudging as she tried to force words onto the page. At last, she scrawled. Love is supposed to lift, but lately it feels like I am carrying it alone. I don't know if Hayden and I are strong or just stubborn. I don't know how much more love I have left to give. She dropped the pen, tears staining the paper, blurring the final line into a smear that looked like surrender. Across campus, Hayden stood outside in the snow, staring at the frozen fountain. His breath curled white into the air as he whispered into the silence. I won't give up. Even if she does, I won't. The fountain did not answer, but its broken echo carried faintly through the night, a sound that was not quite music, not quite silence. It was hope, or maybe it was goodbye. Chapter 15 Cracks in Forever. Winter's grip had loosened, but the chill lingered, clinging to the edges of Greenhill like a memory that refused to fade. The days grew longer, shadows stretching thin across the courtyard. Yet Hayden and Marissa felt no relief. Their silence after the fountain, after the journal, had carved space between them that no sunlight could warm. Still they tried. Because love wasn't only passion and ease, it was work, choice, the stubborn belief that two hearts could find their rhythm again, even when they faltered. Hayden suggested the cafe where they had once spent hours laughing over cheap coffee and scribbled napkins. Marissa agreed, her heart aching with nostalgia for a version of them that felt impossibly far away. They sat across from each other, the air thick with the scent of cinnamon and roasted beans. Hayden forced a smile. Remember when we argued for half an hour about whether art or words last longer? Marissa managed a laugh. You still never admitted I was right. He grinned softer now. I was waiting for the perfect moment. For a while it almost felt normal. Their laughter came haltingly, like a song they once knew but had forgotten the lyrics to. They reached across the table, fingers brushing, but the touch felt rehearsed, fragile. Marissa's chest tightened. She wanted to believe this was healing. She wanted to believe they were patching the cracks. But beneath the surface, she could feel them widening, invisible but relentless. Weeks later came Hayden's gallery debut. A night he had dreamed of, worked for, bled for. Marissa dressed carefully, heart swelling with pride even as it trembled with nerves. The gallery glowed with light, walls adorned with Hayden's canvases. Fierce, chaotic, breathtaking. Critics whispered, patrons lingered, cameras flashed. Hayden stood at the center, his name on everyone's lips. And then Sophia appeared. She glided through the crowd in a sharp dress, her confidence effortless. She went straight to Hayden, brushing his arm, laughing too closely at his ear. Marissa watched from across the room, stomach twisting. Hayden smiled, polite, distracted. But in that moment it didn't matter. The sight of Sophia beside him, so at home in his world, cracked something in her chest. Marissa slipped out before the speeches began, the sound of laughter and clinking glasses chasing her into the night. She wrapped her coat tighter, walking fast, her breath visible in the cold air. She sat on a bench by the lake, staring at the frozen surface. Her reflection wavered, distorted, like a version of herself she no longer recognized. Marissa! She turned. Alex stood there, concern etched into his face. I thought I might find you here. Tears blurred her vision. Why do you always show up when I'm falling apart? He sat beside her, careful not to touch. Because you shouldn't have to fall alone. Her chest ached. For a moment she leaned toward him, desperate for comfort. But she pulled back, whispering, It's not fair to you. He shook his head. What's fair doesn't matter. What matters is what you need. Her heart twisted, torn between the steadiness of Alex and the fire of Hayden. Between the love that felt eternal and the cracks that made it unbearable. Later that night, Marissa returned to her dorm, staring at her phone. Hayden had texted, Where did you go? I wanted you there with me. Her fingers hovered over the keys, but no words came. She set the phone down, whispering into the silence, Maybe I've already lost him. Chapter 16 Between Two Fires. Spring crept into Greenhill with hesitant steps. Buds pushed through frost, the fountain thawed, and the air smelled faintly of earth reborn. Yet for Hayden and Marissa, renewal felt impossibly out of reach. Their love had endured distance, silence, temptation, but now the world itself was demanding more of them than either knew how to give. Hayden sat in Professor Leclerc's office, hands clenched in his lap. The professor's eyes gleamed as he slid an envelope across the desk. Paris, Leclerc said, his accent curling around the word. 6 months. The residency every artist dreams of. Galleries, mentors, critics, all doors open. Hayden, this is the kind of opportunity that defines a career. Hayden's chest tightened. His fingers trembled as he opened the letter, the words blurring, selected. Invitation. Residency abroad. Leclerc's voice softened. You've earned this. Don't let anything or anyone hold you back. Hayden nodded, but his thoughts immediately leapt to Marissa. Her laughter, her tears, her voice at the fountain whispering, Choose me. The fire of ambition roared within him, but so did the fear of losing her. Sophia cornered him later that evening in the studio, her eyes sharp. Paris, she said, already knowing. Congratulations. He swallowed. I haven't decided. Decided? Her laugh was incredulous. Hayden, this is everything. This is what you've bled for. Don't tell me you're hesitating because of her. His jaw tightened. She's not just her. She's everything. Sophia stepped closer, her voice low. Then why do you look more alive in here with a brush in your hand than you ever do when you're with her lately? You can love her, sure, but love won't make you great. This will. Her words seared into him, temptation dressed as truth. When Hayden told Marissa, her heart sank. They stood at the fountain, spring water rippling where ice had once been. 6 months. Her voice broke. Hayden, we've barely survived the distance we already had. This is my dream, Marissa, he whispered. And what about us? Am I supposed to just wait again? Pretend it doesn't hurt every time you choose art over me. His hand shook as he reached for her. I don't want to choose between them. But you have to, she said, pulling away. Because if you go, I don't know if I'll be here when you get back. The words sliced through him, leaving him breathless. Meanwhile, Alex walked Marissa home one evening, sensing her turmoil. You're somewhere else tonight, he said gently. She gave a bitter laugh. I'm always somewhere else these days. He stopped, turning to her. Marissa, you don't have to keep breaking yourself for love that keeps asking more than it gives. Her throat tightened. What are you saying? I'm saying, Alex replied, steady, calm, that with me you wouldn't have to compete. You wouldn't have to beg to be seen. You'd just be loved. His words were a bomb and a knife all at once. She couldn't answer because part of her longed for exactly what he offered, and part of her couldn't imagine a world without Hayden. The night before Hayden's response was due, he sat in the studio, the acceptance letter heavy in his hands. His eyes burned with exhaustion, with longing, with fear. Across campus, Marissa stood at her door with bags packed. Not leaving forever, but leaving for space, for clarity, for breath. 2 hearts, 2 choices, 2 fires burning on opposite sides of the same love. The clock ticked toward midnight, and neither knew which way the other would turn. Chapter 17, Silent Storms. Green Hill bloomed with the first blush of spring, blossoms scattering across campus paths like confetti. But for Hayden and Marissa, there was no celebration in the season. They had drifted apart, not because love had died, but because silence had grown louder than their words. They agreed, or perhaps silently decided, to take space. No long calls, no hurried lunches, no fountain meetings. Just distance, like a storm cloud suspended, waiting to break. Hayden buried himself in the studio. Days blurred into nights and sleep became a stranger. His canvases grew wilder, streaked with jagged colors, as if his brush could bleed the ache from his chest. Sophia lingered, as she always did. She brought him coffee, critiqued his strokes, and reminded him of the residency offer waiting on his desk. You're killing yourself, she said one night, watching him stagger back from a canvas, sweat dripping. I don't know how else to stop feeling, he muttered. You don't have to feel this way, she said softly, stepping closer. You don't have to keep breaking for her. Her hand rose, brushing the edge of his sleeve. Hayden froze. The air between them thickened, charged. For a heartbeat, it would have been so easy to lean into the comfort she offered. But he didn't. He stepped back, voice hoarse. Don't, Sophia. Her eyes flickered, disappointment, maybe even hurt, but she didn't push further. Still, the moment hung heavy in the air. A near betrayal that would linger like a shadow. Marissa tried to lose herself in work, in Alex's steady company, in anything that would drown the ache. But the doubts grew sharper. The memory of Sophia at the gallery haunted her. The silence from Hayden gnawed at her. One evening, restless, she wandered near the studio. She told herself it was a coincidence, that she wasn't looking for him. But her steps betrayed her heart. Through the tall glass window, she saw Hayden. His head was bowed, paint smearing his hands, exhaustion heavy in his posture. And beside him stood Sophia, her hand on his arm, too close, too familiar. Marissa's breath caught. The image pierced deeper than words. Confirmation, she thought, of every fear she had tried to bury. She turned away before Hayden could lift his head and see her. Tears blurred her vision as she walked into the night, each step heavier than the last. Back in her dorm, Marissa collapsed onto her bed, clutching her journal. She wrote with trembling hands. Maybe love is not lost all at once. Maybe it unravels thread by thread until one day you look down and realize you are holding nothing. Her tears stained the ink until the words blurred, as though even the page could not bear the weight of them. Meanwhile, Hayden stood in the studio, unaware of what Marissa had seen. He scrubbed paint from his hands, staring at his reflection in the window. For the first time, he whispered aloud, "What if I already lost her?" At that exact moment, Marissa lay awake, whispering into the dark, "What if I've already lost him?" Two hearts, two storms. Neither knowing the other was still fighting for love beneath the silence. Chapter 18: The distance between us. The days stretched long, the spring sun warm, but Hayden and Marissa felt only cold. Their love, once so fierce and undeniable, now felt like a ghost haunting them. Always present, but untouchable. Marissa avoided the studio path altogether. She couldn't bear the image replaying in her mind. Hayden with Sophia's hand on his arm, his silence stretching into something that looked too much like choice. Alex noticed the shadows in her eyes, though he didn't press. One afternoon, as they sat by the lake, he said quietly, "You don't have to tell me what happened, but you should know you're not alone, Marissa. Not unless you choose to be." Her throat tightened. She wanted to lean into his steadiness, to surrender to the ease he offered. But love was a stubborn tether, and hers still pulled toward Hayden, no matter how frayed. She whispered, "I wish it were that simple." Alex's gaze lingered, but he only nodded. The hardest love is never simple. Hayden barely left the studio. He painted until his hands cramped, until his chest ached with exhaustion. Every brushstroke felt like penance for a crime he hadn't committed but couldn't seem to escape. Sophia tried to draw him out, but he recoiled. Her presence was no longer a temptation. It was a mirror reflecting everything Marissa might believe of him. One night, Hayden smashed a half-finished canvas, shouting into the silence, "It's not her. It's not." But the walls did not answer, and his own voice echoed back like mockery. Marissa sat at her desk late one night, journal open, pen trembling. She began a letter she would never send. "Hayden, I loved you before I knew what love demanded. I believed us strong enough to survive anything. But now I don't know if I am surviving us at all. I saw you with her and it broke something I don't know how to fix. If you love me, tell me before the silence takes what little we have left." She folded the page, slipped it beneath her pillow, and cried herself to sleep. Across campus, Hayden wrote too, his handwriting jagged with frustration. "Marissa, I never touched her. Not the way you think. You are the only one, always. I don't know how to make you believe me, but I would tear apart every canvas, every dream, if it meant holding you again without doubt between us. Please don't give up on me." He crumpled the paper but couldn't throw it away. He tucked it into the back of his sketchbook, where it sat like a wound. 2 letters. 2 truths unsent. Marissa woke with hers still hidden beneath her pillow. Hayden fell asleep with his still pressed against his chest. Both hearts whispered the same prayer. "Please let us find our way back." But prayers without words are fragile things, and the distance between them only grew. Chapter 19: Threads of Hope. Spring unfurled in blossoms and light, but Hayden and Marissa walked separate paths, their silence speaking louder than words ever could. Yet even silence can create art, and from their unraveling, Hayden found his most powerful voice. For weeks, Hayden lived in his studio, possessed by a single canvas. He abandoned food, sleep, even conversation. His professors knocked on the door. Sophia tried to coax him out, but he refused to leave. The painting consumed him, broad, jagged strokes of color that collided yet somehow held together. At the center, a figure fractured, half in shadow, half in light. The lines weren't smooth, the colors weren't gentle, but they pulsed with ache, with beauty, with love refusing to die. When at last he collapsed before it, exhausted, he whispered, "This is us. This is you." It was chaos and devotion. It was despair and hope. It was Marissa. Professor Leclerc was the first to see it. His breath caught as he stepped into the studio. "My God," he murmured. "Hayden, this isn't just art. This is a confession. This is the truth." Word spread quickly. The gallery that had once hosted Hayden's debut requested the piece for exhibition. Critics wrote early praise. A raw portrait of love and loss, brilliance forged from heartbreak. Hayden should have felt triumphant. Instead, he felt hollow because the one person who mattered had not seen it. Marissa first saw the review in the campus paper. She skimmed idly at first, then froze at the description. A portrait of fractured devotion, inspired by love that endures even through silence. Her heart thudded. She knew. Even before she saw the photograph, she knew. That evening, she went to the gallery alone. The halls glowed with soft light, footsteps echoing as she moved past sculptures and landscapes until she found it. The painting loomed larger than she imagined, raw and alive. Her breath caught, tears spilling as she whispered, "It's me. It's us." She stood there for a long time, her hand trembling as though reaching for the canvas might bridge the distance between them. Alex found her outside afterward, cheeks streaked with tears. He didn't ask what she had seen. He already knew. "You love him," he said quietly. Marissa wiped at her face, unable to deny it. "I always will." Alex's smile was small, sad, but steady. "Then that's enough for me to know. You don't need me to tell you where your heart belongs." For the first time, Marissa saw the gentleness in his withdrawal. He wasn't losing her, he was letting her go. Back inside the gallery, Hayden stepped into the room quietly, heart pounding as he saw her standing before the canvas. Marissa, unaware of his presence, whispered to the painting, "Please don't give up on me." Hayden's chest tightened, his throat burning. He opened his mouth, but no words came. The distance between them was still vast. But for the first time in months, hope threaded through the silence. Chapter 20. Where we begin again. The gallery was nearly empty, its quiet halls echoing with the faint hum of evening lights. Marissa stood rooted before the painting, her breath unsteady, eyes locked on the fractured portrait that seemed to bleed and breathe at once. Behind her, Hayden finally spoke. His voice cracked like an old violin string. "It was always you." Marissa spun, eyes wide, tears catching light. Hayden stood in the doorway, paint still smudged on his clothes, exhaustion etched into his face. "You," she whispered. "You painted this?" He stepped closer slowly, as though afraid she might vanish. "Every stroke, every color. It's you, Marissa. It's us. The breaking, the holding on, the refusal to let go." Her chest heaved, torn between anger and longing. "Then why didn't you say it? Why did you let me think? Let me see?" He flinched. "I didn't touch her. Not the way you thought. I wanted to. God, I almost did. But I couldn't. Because every time I looked at Sophia, I saw you. And the thought of losing you." His voice broke. "It's the only thing that terrifies me." Tears spilled down Marissa's cheeks. "And Alex, he was there. I leaned on him more than I should have. I almost..." Her throat caught. "But I didn't. Because no matter how much I ache, no matter how much I doubt, it's still you. It's always been you." For a moment, silence filled the room, heavy and holy. Then Hayden crossed the distance in 2 steps, pulling her into his arms. She resisted at first, her fists pressed against his chest, but then she melted, sobbing into his shirt. "I hate you," she whispered. "I hate that you made me doubt, that you made me feel like I wasn't enough. I hate me too," he murmured, pressing his lips into her hair. "But I love you more than anything. And I'll spend the rest of my life proving it if you let me." She pulled back, searching his eyes, her own gaze fierce through tears. "No more silence. No more hiding. If we do this, we do it all, truth, even when it hurts." "Truth," he swore, his hands trembling as they cradled her face. "Even when it hurts." They kissed then, not soft, not tentative, but desperate and raw. The kind of kiss that carried both apology and promise. Around them, the gallery blurred, the painting watching like a witness to their resurrection. When they finally broke apart, Marissa whispered, "We can't go back, Hayden. Not to what we were. But maybe we can begin again." His lips curved in a fragile smile. "Then let's." For the first time in months, their hands twined firmly, without hesitation. They walked out of the gallery together, steps in sync, as though hope had stitched them back into one rhythm. But back in his studio, the residency letter still lay on Hayden's desk, unanswered. And in Marissa's inbox sat an offer for a graduate program that would take her hundreds of miles away. Love had been reborn tonight, but tomorrow choice would test it again. Chapter 21, The Choice of Forever. The week after their reunion moved like a dream half remembered. Hayden and Marissa laughed again, touched again, whispered again, but beneath the sweetness, a shadow stretched long. Because the world had not paused for their love. Decisions waited, insistent, and both knew that this time, choices could not be delayed. Hayden stood in the studio. The residency letter spread across the desk. Paris called to him with the allure of everything he had ever wanted. Acclaim, opportunity, greatness. Sophia appeared one last time, her presence sharp as ever. "You know you'll never get this chance again," she said quietly. 6 months in Paris could change your life. Hayden's jaw tightened. It would change our lives. And maybe not for the better. Sophia tilted her head, eyes unreadable. Maybe she'll wait. Maybe she won't. But do you want to spend forever wondering what might have been? Her words lingered even after she left, her footsteps echoing like an ending. Meanwhile, Marissa sat in her dorm, staring at her laptop. The graduate program offer glowed on the screen. Acceptance. Full scholarship. Research position waiting. Alex knocked gently on her door, offering a final kindness. "You're brilliant, Marissa," he said. "You don't need me to tell you that. But you do need to hear this. Don't sacrifice yourself. Not for him. Not for anyone." Her eyes stung. "Alex." He smiled faintly. "I care about you too much to watch you break again. If you stay, let it be because you chose it. If you go, let it be because you chose that too. But let it be your choice." It was goodbye, not spoken but understood. Hayden and Marissa met at the fountain that evening, as they always had. The water ran clear again, glinting in the lamplight, as though mocking the chaos of their hearts. Hayden reached for her hand. "They want me in Paris." Marissa swallowed. "And they want me in Boston." The silence between them stretched long, filled with the weight of what neither wanted to admit, that love alone might not be enough to hold them in place. "What do we do?" Marissa whispered. Hayden's grip tightened. "We choose. And we fight for it. Whatever it costs." Her eyes searched his, desperate, afraid but still filled with love. "Then promise me we'll choose each other." "I promise," he said, voice shaking. They stood together, hands clasped, as though the fountain itself bore witness to their vow. Yet both knew tomorrow demanded answers neither was ready to give. Hayden's acceptance letter still lay on his desk. Marissa's scholarship still glowed on her screen. Two paths, two futures. One love, fragile, fierce, eternal. Chapter 22. The Promise of Forever. July sunlight spilled across the tarmac when the plane touched down, the kind of light that seemed to hold prophecy in its warmth. Hayden squeezed Marissa's hand as they descended the steps, her laughter rising above the alpine breeze. She had begged him all week to tell her where they were going, but he had only shaken his head, mischief tucked into his smile. Now the snow-capped ridges of the Swiss Alps rose before them like ancient witnesses, and Marissa's breath caught in wonder. "Hayden," she whispered, eyes wide, "what are we doing here?" "You'll see," he said, his voice low, steady, carrying the weight of something more than surprise. That evening, he led her along a lantern-lit path through snow that glowed under moonlight. The peaks loomed sharp and eternal, the air crisp with silence. Marissa's boots crunched softly, her cheeks flushed pink from the cold and the thrill. When they reached the clearing, she stopped short. Lanterns had been arranged in a perfect circle, golden light flickering against the snow. At the center stood an easel draped with white cloth. Hayden's hands trembled as he pulled it away, revealing a painting. Marissa at the fountain, her figure radiant, the water behind her transformed into mountains. Timeless, unyielding, eternal. Her hands flew to her mouth, tears streaming. "Hayden!" He dropped to one knee, snow soaking through his trousers, his breath visible in the icy air. "Marissa, you've been my echo, my anchor, my forever since the first moment. You are the reason every color has meaning. Will you marry me? Not just for now, but for every forever we're given." Her heart pounded so fiercely she thought the mountains might hear it. She laughed through her sobs, nodding. "Yes. Yes, Hayden, 1,000 times yes." The mountains seemed to echo her answer, scattering it back. Yes, 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 as though even creation had joined their vow. Weeks later, their families and friends gathered in a garden threaded with fairy lights. Photos of their journey were strung between trees. Their first day at Green Hill, their awkward coffee dates, the gallery debut, the fountain. A string quartet played softly, the melody from the autumn festival where they had first met. Marissa's cheeks ached from smiling. She thought she knew what the night would bring: toasts, laughter, dancing. But Hayden had one last surprise. In the middle of the party, as the quartet shifted into a new song, he knelt again. The guests gasped, clapping, cheering, though Marissa's tears spilled fresh. "I'll keep asking," Hayden said, voice unsteady but sure, "because I'll keep choosing you. Every day. Every lifetime." Marissa pulled him up, pressing her lips to his. The applause roared around them, but she only heard his heartbeat, steady against her own. As the wedding drew near, Marissa's twin brother and Hayden's twin sister planned a bridal shower that overflowed with joy. Marissa walked into a room filled with laughter, the walls decorated with notes and wishes from friends who had walked each step with her. There were silly games, Hayden trivia she half-failed because she couldn't remember his favorite childhood snack, speeches that left her laughing and crying at once, and gifts wrapped in paper covered with sketches of fountains and flowers. At the end, her twin brother handed her a small box. Inside was a locket, simple but beautiful, with room for 2 tiny portraits. "For when forever feels too far away," he said softly. Marissa hugged him tightly, overwhelmed. She knew then this wasn't just about marrying Hayden. It was about binding 2 families, 2 histories, 2 lives into something larger than themselves. Later that night, alone in her room, Marissa lay awake. The locket rested against her chest, the memory of Hayden on his knees in the snow still vivid. She whispered into the quiet, "I can't wait to walk down the aisle to you." The words floated like a vow into the summer dark, carrying the promise of forever. Chapter 23, Where Vows Begin. The morning of the wedding broke soft and golden, sunlight dripping through the branches of the old oak grove where the ceremony would be held. The air smelled of roses and summer earth, the sky wide and impossibly blue, as if creation itself had dressed for the occasion. Marissa woke to the sound of laughter outside her window. Her bridal party, led by her twin brother, bustled through final details. Flowers in mason jars, lanterns strung high, the aisle scattered with petals. When she slipped into her gown, satin that flowed like water, lace embroidered with tiny stars, she caught her reflection and gasped softly. "I don't look like a bride," she thought. "I look like the answer to a prayer." Guests rose as the quartet struck the first note. Marissa clutched her bouquet, her heart pounding in rhythm with the music. At the end of the aisle, beneath the great oak tree, Hayden waited. He wore a tailored suit, but it wasn't the cut of the jacket or the crisp white shirt that stole her breath. It was his eyes. Wide, wet with love, they never left hers. Her twin brother walked beside her, steady and proud. As they reached the end, he pressed her hand into Hayden's with a whisper only she heard. "He's your forever now." The officiant's words drifted over them, but all Marissa heard was Hayden's voice when it was time. "Marissa," he said, his hands trembling around hers, "you are my anchor and my wings. I've tried to paint eternity, but nothing has captured it the way you have. Today, I don't just vow to love you. I vow to keep choosing you, even when it's hard, even when the world pulls us in different directions. You are my beginning and my end." Tears streamed down Marissa's cheeks as she spoke her vow. "Hayden, I thought love was a feeling, but you taught me it's a choice and action, a promise we renew every day. I vow to laugh with you, to dream with you, to fight beside you. And when eternity has echoed so long the stars have burned out, I will still love you." The guests wept openly. Even Hayden's twin sister clutched a tissue, smiling through tears. When the ring slid onto fingers, it wasn't just metal circling skin. It was time itself promising to hold them together. "By the power vested in me." The words faded into the summer air as Hayden cupped Marissa's face and kissed her. It wasn't fevered or rushed, it was steady, reverent sealing. The guests erupted into cheers as the fountain nearby seemed to sing louder. The reception unfolded beneath strings of lights. Their first dance was to a song Hayden had written, performed by a friend on acoustic guitar. Each lyric was a thread stitched into the tapestry of their story. They danced until laughter ached in their ribs, fed each other cake with messy, playful fingers, and listened to toasts that blended tears with joy. As the night deepened, guests lined the pathway with sparklers, stars in their hands. Hayden and Marissa ran through the glow, hands clasped, laughter spilling into the summer night. At the end of the path, Hayden lifted her into his arms, whispering into her hair, "This isn't an ending, Mari. This is where vows begin." She pressed her forehead against his, smiling through tears. "Then let's keep them forever." The car whisked them away toward a new horizon. A honeymoon, a life, a forever that awaited beyond the oak grove. Chapter 24. Echoes of Eternity. The honeymoon was their first stretch of days without interruption, without the ache of distance or the weight of choice. Just Hayden and Marissa, hand in hand, hearts unguarded. They wandered cobblestone streets in Florence, sipped wine under Venetian lanterns, and watched dawn paint the Aegean Sea in colors Hayden swore he'd spend a lifetime trying to capture. Marissa teased him for carrying a sketchbook everywhere. "Even on our honeymoon, Hayden?" He grinned, kissing the tip of her nose. "How else am I supposed to remember the way you look when you laugh under Italian moonlight?" Their nights were soft and unhurried, filled with whispered dreams and quiet touches that felt like prayers. For once, they weren't surviving. They were simply living, joy unfolding like sunrise. When they returned, their new home by the river welcomed them like a blessing. The water outside their window rippled with morning light, and in the evenings, the boys from the neighborhood played near the banks, their laughter echoing across the yard. Hayden set up his studio upstairs, canvases leaning against every wall. Marissa claimed a sunlit corner by the window for her desk, stacks of books surrounding her. One evening, as she unpacked, Marissa paused at the fountain sketch Hayden had given her years ago. She framed it above her desk. "So I never forget where we began," she said softly. That first month, Marissa began dreaming of Hayden again. In her dreams, he was always reaching for her across a field of light, whispering her name with such devotion it woke her trembling. One morning, she told him, cheeks pink, "It feels like my soul is reminding me, we're meant for more than even this." Hayden brushed her hair back gently. "Maybe it's not a reminder. Maybe it's a promise." Weeks later, Marissa stood in their bathroom, hands trembling around the small test in her palm. Her breath came fast, her heart pounding louder than the river outside. Positive. She sat on the edge of the tub, tears streaming, joy and terror in equal measure. When Hayden came home, paint still on his hands, she couldn't wait. She pressed the test into his palm, her voice breaking. "Hayden, we're having a baby." He froze, staring, the world collapsing into that single word, baby. Then his face split into a grin so wide it hurt, laughter and tears spilling together. He lifted her off the ground, spinning her until she squealed. "A baby," he whispered into her neck. "Mari, we're going to be parents." That night, as they lay in bed, Hayden rested his hand over her stomach, his thumb tracing gentle circles. "Do you realize what this means?" he murmured. Marissa smiled sleepily. "That our love is about to echo louder than ever." Outside, the river flowed steadily, its current pulling toward forever. And inside, in their hands, eternity had grown small and alive. Chapter 25. The Circle Complete. The news of Marissa's pregnancy spread like light through glass, each telling making it brighter. Hayden couldn't keep the joy quiet. Every brushstroke in his studio carried a new energy. Every conversation ended with him blurting, "We're going to be parents." Marissa, meanwhile, carried the secret more softly. She touched her stomach absent-mindedly, humming when she worked, smiling to herself when no one else was watching. But neither of them expected what came next. At their first ultrasound, Hayden held Marissa's hand so tightly she winced. "Sorry," he whispered, though he didn't let go. The technician smiled as she adjusted the probe. "Well," she said, tilting the screen, "I've got a surprise for you too." Two tiny flickers pulsed side by side on the monitor. Marissa gasped. Hayden blinked. "Twins," the technician said warmly. "Congratulations." Marissa covered her mouth with her free hand, tears spilling. "Hayden." He laughed through his own tears, kissing her hair, her cheeks, her hands. "Twins. Mari, it's perfect. You have a twin, I have a twin, of course, this is how it had to be." They decided to tell their families together. Hayden's twin sister and Marissa's twin brother organized what they thought was just a small dinner. But when the couple arrived, the backyard was transformed. Balloons, fairy lights, banners strung with baby on the way. "A baby shower already?" Marissa whispered, stunned. Hayden grinned. "Looks like they beat us to it." The night filled with laughter and gifts, tiny socks, lullabies sung by cousins, speeches from teary-eyed parents. Marissa's mother held her face and whispered, "You're giving me eternity in the form of children." At the height of the party, Hayden cleared his throat. "There's one more thing," he said, pulling Marissa close. "We're not just having a baby." Marissa lifted the ultrasound photo. "We're having twins." Gasped cheers tears, the backyard erupted. Hayden's twin sister shrieked with joy. Hugging him so tightly he laughed. Marissa's twin brother lifted her off her feet, spinning her as guests clapped and cried. It wasn't just a celebration, it was a legacy. Later, in the hush after the chaos, Marissa and Hayden sat with their siblings. "You've walked with us since the beginning," Marissa said softly. "We can't imagine anyone else standing with our children." Hayden nodded, his voice thick. "We'd like you both to be their godparents." There were tears again, hugs that lasted long, and vows spoken not just for the babies, but for the circle of love binding them all. Months later, on a crisp autumn evening, Hayden and Marissa returned to Green Hill. The fountain still flowed, its water catching moonlight. They brought no crowd, no party, just themselves and the secret lives stirring within Marissa's belly. They stood hand in hand, the same as they had years before. Yet everything was different. Hayden pressed a coin into her palm. "On 3. She smiled through tears. "On 3. They tossed together, the coins arching side by side, falling with a splash. Ripples spread, touching stone, returning to the center. Marissa whispered, "Do you hear it?" Hayden nodded, his eyes fixed on hers. "The echo. The one that never fades," she said, resting his hand against her stomach. "The one that keeps answering," he replied. They kissed then, slow and steady, the fountain singing behind them. In that moment, time itself seemed to bend, past, present, future meeting in one eternal vow. Back home, months later, their sons arrived, twin boys, tiny echoes of Hayden's laughter in Marissa's eyes. The house by the river filled with the cries of new life, the rhythm of family, the endless music of love chosen again and again. One evening, as the babies slept in their cribs, Hayden sketched them by lamplight, his strokes careful, reverent. Marissa watched from the doorway, whispering, "What are you drawing?" He looked up, smiling softly. "Forever." And she knew he was right, because their love had not just survived storms, it had built a home inside them, a legacy that would echo long after their names were only whispers in the wind. Thank you for listening to Echoes of Eternity, a story where love whispers, remembers, and returns. This audiobook is more than words. It is a journey of connection, longing, and a love that refuses to fade. If this chapter touched your heart, subscribe, share, and stay close as the echoes continue to unfold. Until the next chapter, may you carry hope in your chest, warmth in your spirit, and faith in the love God designed uniquely for you. Echoes of Eternity, written in 2021. Audiobook edition, copyright 2025. All rights reserved. Written by Miriam K. Musonda-salati. Thank you for choosing to listen. I'll meet you again in the echoes. This audiobook is a work of fiction and is protected by copyright. All rights reserved.